style, and substance. In the GMC Sierra, where kids represent APR plus.
Well, Jim, there was another big segment on SmackDown, one that was, although the Cena thing ended up being a big deal, the real big deal, the reason a lot of people were tuning in was the idea that someone could be returning, and there was a big segment around it.
Someone apparently got 178 million social views. Now, having a social view of somebody used to get you arrested in some states, but now it's not frowned upon at all, and they got a bunch of them. We knew this, it was set up so perfectly, and again, and I'm going to explain to people that may not yet get it why this is fucking money. They start out with Seth's music so they can whoa and do the whole thing, and we know he's in the stands, and they go to a break. And I'm wondering, after they played the music, he comes out, he's in the stands up there in the spotlight, and they're all whoaing, and they go to the break, and they came back 3.5 minutes later, the music's still playing, they're still whoaing. Does he have to stand there and just whoa? And do these people continue to whoa during the whole goddamn commercial break, Brian?
I don't know. Any of this makes me feel like I'm tied to the tree wall.
I mean, it used to be, you didn't have to work so hard when you paid to go to see the show without having to whoa for so. But anyway, he basically does the introduction. Tonight, the legend of CM Punk dies, and of course, they're in Chicago. So, of course, he's got nuclear heat already. And he gets the big CM Punk chance. And Seth introduces Becky. And Becky comes out, makes her entrance down the aisle, gets in the ring, and she's got big heat. And it's the same thing we were talking about with this whole Cena thing and blah, blah, blah. These people are over. The fans know what their interactions are with these other people and the references they're making. And it's a personal fucking issue, which we'll get to in a minute, but it's understandable. And the people are with it. And the crowd immediately, as soon as Becky's music dropped, was chanting, AJ Lee, AJ Lee. How dare you chant somebody else's name? And every time she screeches at him like this shrewish, bossy bitch, they boo the shit out of her. And again, not in the fun way, like, it's fine. Now it's where we're supposed to scream over Dominic or whatever. It's, no, we don't like you. You're saying shit we don't like. We don't want to hear this. Boo, you're a bad person. I'm not saying they want to stab her. We're not going that far, but it's the same, different tone.
But she does good with it too, because she changes her tone and she raises her voice. Like they're not going to stop her, as opposed to other people we've seen. They just keep talking the way they're going to talk. She does good with it, I think.
Well, yeah, and again, she's so good at being this bossy, shrewish, condescending, nasty woman. Just browbeating people, and she's bitchy, and she went down the list and she named all the Chicago sports teams. I mean, she covered football, basketball, baseball, fucking hockey, whatever, and said they all suck. And so does CM Punk. And they boo again, and suddenly, like a Mussolini to talk to Becky. Here comes Punk now, and the place blows, and he comes a big pop, and it's clobbering time. And he's coming down to the ring. Becky's in the ring. Seth is up in the stands. The people are chanting CM Punk. And Punk says, it's not about you, Becky. It's about your coward husband. Hiding behind his goons, and hiding behind Heyman, and hiding behind his wife. And they're chanting AJ Lee, AJ Lee. And I know people are like, well, they should have kept it a surprise. Fuck! This is perfect because it's telling everybody at home, even if they don't know what the fuck's going on, shit, we missed something. We need to be tuned into this thing here. What's going on? These people are going batshit. Who's AJ? They haven't seen her in 10 years. They're going to fix that. But anyway, and Punk says you will let him chant AJ Lee. And he's got Chicago as backup. And he mentions, you know, he could have called Bailey or he could call Rhea if he wanted. And then Becky goes off and slaps him again and paintbrushes him again and slaps at him some more. And cut a promo on him just like she did last week as he's walking out of the ring berating him. But this time, he goes to the entrance and he says, I would never put my hands on a lady, but I've got somebody who will. And they play AJ's music. Here's the person that these 16,000 people have been chanting for. We've got her. Here go the babies. And she comes out. And Ron, here's the thing. I don't know that I've ever seen an AJ Lee wrestling match. Because remember, she's been gone for 10 years. It's been more than 10 years now, right? Because the Punk was gone for more. Nevertheless, wasn't paying any attention back then to what the WWE was doing. But I know that basically crazy is her superpower. And how do I know that people are scared of her, Brian? Because as she comes down all smiley about to fucking go crazy like a goddamn Chucky doll or whatever, Becky Lynch is in the ring shitting herself. Oh shit! That's the way you get shit over. Because I saw somebody on Twitter is like, why was Becky acting like she was scared of this little girl when she doesn't act scared of goddamn, what the fuck's her name? The refrigerator, Jax. Because it sells tickets. Becky has to be afraid that this fucking wife of the man that her husband has been fucking around, and now she's fucking around. His wife's crazy, and here she comes. And if she's not scared, it kills the whole deal. They're telling a story here. And AJ skips around the ring and smiling while Becky's begging off. And the people are chanting, holy shit, holy shit. And then when AJ gets in the ring, she snaps and double legs her and beats the shit out of Becky. Apparently for real, because she had a black eye on Raw, right? But she's wailing on her, and Becky gets out from under it, and AJ Thesz presses her and pounds on her again. And the big slap, and Becky takes a big bump and is selling all over ringside, like when I sold for Bill Watts. And the people are going crazy. And Punk and AJ celebrate in the ring, and Seth and his wife, and a guy that it was perfect. This is a personal issue. This is what wrestling has been missing for a long time. The only thing that will ruin it is if AJ and Becky in this tag team match that they're about to set up here soon on Raw, when they have it, if AJ and Becky start trying to wrestle and do one tackle, drop down, hip toss, Hurricane Rana, fucking dive, it'll kill it. They want to see these two beat the shit out of each other. I'm not saying they can't body slam somebody, but if they start doing this goddamn Cirque du Soleil cartwheel wrestling, it'll kill it. But they want to see these two fucking fight and beat the shit out of each other. It's classic wrestling. A guy and his wife against a guy and his wife, and everybody knows who they are. And this was perfectly built. And then again, they're going to introduce Becky for the newer, not Becky, but AJ for the newer audiences. More on Raw to make sure that everybody's with it. They're telling a fucking story. I don't care who else is on Lollapalooza. I just want to see this. I don't care what the fuck the rest of it is.
All right,
Are you muted?
No, that wasn't really a segue or anything. I was listening to you.
Well, that's a safe listen every time, but what do you think there, son?
You know, I was a bit conflicted on it. Everything you just said is right, and you're almost convincing me not to think what I thought. But, you know, I think my original statement was if she comes out there skipping, it kills it a bit for me. Something along those lines. And she came out there skipping, and the fans went crazy for her skipping, and that's kind of what she did 10 years ago plus when she was there, which was a period of time I really didn't like.
Art Dimberton?
You know, it wasn't like, man, the whole show sucks, but the AJ Lee stuff is great. I mean, she was part of the show, and I wasn't really into the show at that point in time. Not to say I won't get into this, and, you know, we'll talk about Monday when we talk about Monday, but I still
What's
think
up, Art?
what it would have been like if she wasn't in her gear and somehow just reached over the barricade and started punching Becky Lynch, and you realize, oh my God, that's AJ Lee, who we expected. But then, you know, instead it was back to Raw from 12 years ago, and I did not like that product.
But here's the thing. Do you know what Vince McMahon would have said about that idea? We're kayfabing ourselves. Because sometimes you can get in a position where you can actually manipulate the people into demanding something that you then can just give them. But if you bring it out of nowhere, you've missed a lot of that anticipation and a lot of that pop. And with the skipping, this again, that's why I said I haven't seen any AJ Lee matches, but I understand the gimmick is she's crazy. So I view this as Roughhouse Fargo. She can come out and skip and look all, and by the way, they're the same size, because somebody's going to say, well, she's like a little girl, and you don't like a little girl. Well, Becky's fucking minute also. So here's the thing,
Roughhouse wasn't that big either.
well, in Roughhouse,
That's what you meant. I thought you were saying AJ Lee's the same size as Roughhouse Fargo.
No. I mean, she's the same size, because some people are going to say, well, she's a little tiny girl, but so is
You don't
Becky,
understand,
they're the same
Plan.
size. And the Roughhouse Fargo thing is, if she comes out skipping, and the people are going crazy, and they're chanting her name, and they're screaming, why step on the pop? And then she snaps and kills the girl, which she did. Then, okay, that's her gimmick, and I want to see that. She can fucking skip and smile all she wants to around the ring and with the fans and whatever, and she can be animated like that as long as then when she snaps, she's goddamn crazy. And there you go. Now we got something. And that's again why I'm saying they don't need to wrestle, they need to fight. And I think they both probably can. I don't know how AJ's work is, but again, they don't need to. This doesn't need to be a scientific classic that all the fucking indie wrestling fans will love. So they go, she's got no moveset. No, they need to be slinging each other into shit.
That's another thing. I mean, considering what this is, which was Becky Lynch slapping around AJ Lee's husband, they shouldn't lock up or anything, right? They should just start pounding each other.
Well, I mean, they should. The guys are going to start, I would think, because I can't see any way in the world that with the people involved, they wouldn't want to build it to where the girls get to each other. And at that point, I wouldn't think it'd be a situation where they're going to circle around the ring and lock up. I think this needs to be like a Ronda Rousey debut. Remember when they worked everything around her and Stephanie, and it was fucking brilliant, and then she never had a match that good again? These girls can actually work already, but they need to build the match around part around the girls getting a hold of each other and in different creative ways, but not too much till the end. But yeah, again, this could be the main event. I don't, you know, and bless Cena and Brock. That's a strong match, but this could be the main event of any regular pay-per-view. It could main event any arena in the country, and I'd be happy.
And again, we'll talk about Raw shortly, but another thing this reminded me of, it's been a long time since AJ Lee's been on this show, and again, that wasn't one of my favorite times. I forgot how much I hated her goddamn music. Just that music. As soon as it hit, I was like, oh no, I remember this. But again, they super served their fans, and the fans that were there to see this. This was Chicago, which is like her adopted hometown, I guess, because she's married to someone from Chicago. I don't know how that works. It's her place now.
Well, they know she resides there. Larry would get a pop. You know what? God damn it.
Oh, Rollins has to get a dog. Rollins has to get a dog.
No, hold on. They need to have Larry come out and bite fucking Rollins in the ass first. And then Rollins goes against the dog. And then they have a six-person, well, not even six-person, a six-species, well, it wouldn't be six species. An intergender, well, it wouldn't be that. A six-entity, three on each side family contest.
See, I like the idea because he's a heel. You would think you would get a bigger dog than Larry, and then you would get to the point in the match where the match is at the beginning, you would have to hand the leash over to Heyman, who would have to control the dog. I like that idea.
Have you ever seen Alfred Hitchcock walking a dog?
Picking up after it? No.
No. Well, he's used to picking up after
He would tear his pants. If he bent over to pick up some crap, I don't know why we're fantasizing about Paul Heyman.
No, I wasn't going to use the word fantasize about any of this.
Well, that was the AJ Lee return on SmackDown. And Jim, of course,
Yes.
this big return means something. And what it means is that AJ Lee may have a little
Who the
less
hell is
time
Bart? Atlanta
to
jail.
focus
So.
on that new business she was going to start up. This is an awful transition. Maybe now she really wants to start up that business. Look, if you have a business and you need an online friend, a support system there for you, get your items into the biggest possible storefront. Help me. Ladies and gentlemen, our friends at Shopify.
You got some business to attend to, ladies and gentlemen. You want some risky business, Jack? If you have no business doing a transition to a commercial, then you may be Brian Last. Folks, I think that what Brian was trying to say there, and failing miserably, is that you need to have a business. Because you got to support yourself somehow. They apparently still in this day and age, they've not made it where you can just wander around aimlessly through life without any means of support, or sooner or later somebody's going to get mad at you. So let's say you've got an idea, you got a brilliant concept, you've got a strategy, you've got a product, you've got a service, you got something you want to sell, you've got a song that your heart wants to sing and you need to sing it. But you got no way to there, see, there you go. Sing, sing, sing went the trolley, ding, ding, ding went the bell. Sing, sing, sing went my heartstrings, cause my business went to hell because I didn't team up with Shopify. Cause Shopify will take your business and it will shove it straight to the top. It will cram it all the way inside the hearts and minds of people all across the world. And then they will instantly know that you are selling succulent seafood or
Why would that be the example you went with?
or perhaps you're selling a natty embroidery.
Will you go straight to jail the moment you use your gun in self-defense? Many gun owners think they've got self-defense 100% figured out. Unfortunately, most people watching this video will go to bed without knowing the 3 decisions that truly determine the outcome of a violent encounter. Not knowing decision number 3 can even send you to jail. Don't load your gun again until you watch this free, unbiased training video.
So anyway, They're 25 minutes into the show. They come back from the break. The match is already underway. But now they're back to booing Sammy when he's on the offense. They boo, but they're doing arm drags. They're having a wrestling match, and the people are into it, and they're invested. And if Sammy arm drags Cena, they'll boo, and if Cena arm drags Sammy, they'll cheer. And Sammy is not healing, but it doesn't matter because the crowd has a clear favorite. And Cena can't go as hard or as fast as he used to, nor can he bump as hard. But they don't care because it's him and they're seeing it and it's the last time and blah, blah, blah. But think about this for a second, Brian, because a lot of people... Cena's got, 3 months left on his retirement tour, right? And that would mean... he stopped doing the countdown, but if he's going to be there 10 or 12 more times, and that's, I assume, Survivor Series and a network debut and a big Saturday night show, a couple other pay-per-views, right? During that time, is that correct?
You would think so. They're going to end, I guess the last match is Saturday night's main event in Washington, D.C. It's supposed to be Boston. That's now a house show, I think.
Well, but
and then a Survivor Series and whatever December pay-per-view they have.
He's in the main event or feature match of events that are going to gross or because of the rights fee be paid, they're going to be compensated for whatever, $50 million. Is that an exaggeration based on the figures that you've seen publicly reported? They're going to gross $50 million on just the events he's got left. Is that a terrible exaggeration?
Again, I don't have the numbers in front of me. It doesn't seem like a terrible exaggeration.
It might even be undercutting them. What kind of pressure? This is what nobody is asking. What kind of pressure is it not only on him, but whoever he's in the ring with? Because he's doing these moves that he doesn't normally do as a tribute to other people he didn't get to work with, like he does the pop-up power bomb for Owens, and he does this and that thing, whatever the fuck, right? Well, that's shit he doesn't do regularly. Plus, he hasn't had a regular schedule like this. He's doing these long matches. And yes, he's in great shape, but what kind of pressure must it be on him? Think, I better not fucking, hurt myself. Or it's throwing a $50 million fucking wrench in this deal. And for the people in the ring with him. When Sami Zayn gives him an exploder, he's at a very safe distance from the turnbuckle. Because what kind of pressure must it be on Sami Zayn to think when he's picking up the guy that's going to be in the feature match of $50 million worth of business in the next 3 months, and he needs to make sure he puts him down right. John's going to do as much of what he wants to do as he can, but he's not going to be stupid, and they're going to have him work with people. I know I can't believe I'm saying even Brock that are not going to be stupid with him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want him to get hurt, and if someone did happen to be the guy that hurt him, there would be a lot of pressure. With that said, how's he going to wrestle Brock Lesnar and it not be a physical thing?
Well, it's going to be a physical thing, but it's not going to be a stupid thing. Because, I would hesitate to say that John probably figures he's going to get tatered a couple times in the side of the head, but he's not going to be picked up and thrown in such a way that he's going to have to have surgery. Right? That's the thing, is Brock has the ability and the mental acumen for this thing to know how, when to control himself a bit, but still project the aura, but he's not going to be goofy with Cena. But it's still going to be physical, but that's something that they will take pride in rather than taking stupid risks. And sometimes guys are good enough that they can make the safe shit look more painful than the dangerous shit. And that's what he did with Sammy here. Instead of fucking up however many tens of millions of dollars, but they had a smart, logical, professional wrestling match, and the fans were into everything because the guys in it were
most important part, like they didn't have to do anything. Like, they did exactly what those fans were ready for.
Yes, and again, you know, it made sense, and it was a wrestling match, and the crowd was into it, and it harkened back a little bit to that's the way that the crowds used to be in kind of almost all the matches years ago, before everybody got smart and became looking at it like Rex Reed instead of. But they went through several breaks. They put some time in. They had some big false finishes, and then Cena even hit the GTS, and then he hit a spear, and he was getting big pops on these 2 counts, right? And the fans started chanting RKO. So he tried the RKO, but Sammy shoved him off, and Cena hit a clothesline and hit the AA off of the turnbuckles and got a big pop, and both of them were selling after this. It went about 20 minutes, had a heck of a match. And the fans were chanting, "This is awesome," as they're both laying there after the big move. And that's when they hit Brock's music. And the people go batshit. And you will recall, Brian, that when was it, about a month ago, he came out and just fucking F5'd Cena, and off he went, right? And we say he didn't come to TV, and what the fuck? Well, just to make sure everybody remembers what he did, he came out and he F5'd him again. He F5'd Sammy, he F5'd Cena, and he F5'd Cena again. And then he put his fucking hat back on and walked out of there. But here's the thing, and that's, again, with Brock, the most dangerous thing he did when he pulled the referee out, poor old Rudy Charles, whatever his real name is that goes by now. He hurt him. That was fucking stiff. He pulled him and he couldn't control his fall to the floor.
Yeah, that was rough.
But the F5s on Cena were just fine. So he knows what he's doing when he wants to. But again, F5, it's laughs, says nothing, and walks out. And then, you know, when they go to break, they come back, and it's the replay of his run in, and Brock in the back saying, "I'll see you at WrestlePalooza, bitch."
Doesn't sound
Just
like
him having to say WrestlePalooza just didn't, yeah. And then they made the match official for September 20th, Cena and Lesnar. So the first 50 minutes of the show was all Cena and this business, and it flew right by. You didn't want to just go, "What the fuck are they doing?" every couple minutes, because it wouldn't go away.
You know, I know ECW used it, and obviously Lollapalooza is a big deal. But WrestlePalooza is like one step up from WrestleLicious. It's just like a it just sounds stupid. Hearing Brock Lesnar go, "I'll see you at WrestlePalooza." No, why don't you just invite him to Wrestle Rock? Like it sounds so wrong.
Yeah, I'll see that pansy name they've given for this wrestling event, bitch.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, it's so interesting that all this is happening around the idea of a pay-per-view in whatever, a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then Cena leaving in a few months. They said Brock signed a new contract, or I read that Brock signed a new contract. So they have to have more plans for him down the road.
Well, and let's clarify that, because there was stories that when he was announced as having been legally cleared from this rigmarole by their staff, people were saying he'd been paid the whole time, and then they said he signed a new contract. Both was apparently true. He was paid through the end of the contract he had for a while, even though he hadn't been used. So again, hooray for him, but what a bunch of knuckleheads. I'd have put a hood on him if I had to. If I was paying him that kind of money, come and fucking work. But anyway, they signed him to a new contract going forward because it expired during the term of the brouhaha, is I guess what the official detail is. But he's back, so who's going to win? Cena's retiring, Brock signed a new contract. Does anybody want to see Brock beat Cena now? Now that he's back to his former vim and vigor as a an honest, righteous, upstanding babyface simpleton, or what? I mean,
Hey,
what?
no one wanted to see.
happening?
No one wanted to see Brock beat the Undertaker, and they did it.
I thought the idea is that Brock is supposed to be the guy that looks like he can beat everybody. That you want to make people see somebody beat him, but you would have to beat him for that to happen, and every once in a while. So, but see, that's why they make horse races, as Lance Russell would say. Or don't make horse races. That's why they have horse races. Do they book horse races? What would be the verb
That's what you
for the
asked.
horse races?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
I mean, I thought you came from a long line of horse racing people.
I mean, I've had some
There
fun.
in the
I've had some fun. at
Saratoga.
Belmont. Saratoga.
Belmont.
Yeah.
Well, that's the place in New York I can think of.
Well, you know, Jim, John
Yes.
Cena getting ready for the big match, having to deal with Brock Lesnar, who just throws referees around and everyone else around.
Yeah.
He's got to be sore.
Gotta be.
Maybe even having a rough time sleeping. All these pressures on him.
Tossing and turning.
He could use some help, some friendly help, and it wouldn't be the first time that John Cena got some help from Louisville, Kentucky, from our friends at Cornbread Hemp.
You know, that's exactly right. And I would encourage.
I was looking for a video. Playa, where are you at Lanza jail? I'm a pig. Yeah, I was wondering about that too. He said 2 days ago.
Style and substance in the GMC Sierra. Work its
But of course, another Paul Heyman guy. Maybe I should phrase it differently, but another person who is in the stable of Paul Heyman is Seth Rollins, Seth Franklin Rollins, and he was a part of the Big Angle on Raw.
Well, and a Paul Heyman girl too, because if Becky is in the stable of Heyman, then she's one of his horses also. But she's a filly. She's one of the fillies. But they weren't in Philly. If they were, Heyman would have showed up in a goddamn neck brace or an oxygen mask or something. Anyway, we mentioned it before. They reported that AJ Lee's return on SmackDown got 178 million social views. People, peeking in the curtains, couldn't get enough. And they also had done earlier, they did a package on her with some highlights when she was there before and whatever, winning the belt. Because it's been 10 years, they recognize, I think as I said before, that not everybody out there knows that so-and-so had a grueling match with such and such in Mexico City in 2014. So just to make sure, and then when AJ comes out to the big response and the welcome back chants, she did the same thing. She introduced herself to the new fans, but in a charming way, self-deprecating way or whatever. Not like I'm this and I'm that, but you may not know. Because it's been 10 years. They wanted to see her there. They were ready to see her. And they were, I will say, I believe that it could have been a little shorter. I think it's also her first promo in 10 years, so not bad for that on national TV. But the basic story was that she retired 10 years ago. She wasn't sure, or she was sure that she wouldn't be back in the ring. And she did other things, and she said she went on a mental health journey and went to therapy and got the fans to chant therapy. So again, they're listening to these people. They're not just sitting through it like they do on some of the other programs, waiting for a zinger that they can ooh at. They're picking up on this shit as it goes. And anyway, in a roundabout way, and I do like her facial reactions to things, and especially when Becky comes out here in a minute, because it's the first time I'm here to talk also. But she finally got to the point was she was doing good until she watched Raw, and then she was not doing good seeing her husband in the ring with Becky Lynch. And as soon as she starts talking about Becky, here comes Becky's music. And here comes Becky. And this has got nothing to do with your skank-ass husband.
Was that some kind of marijuana?
And Becky, by the way, I forgot to mention AJ Lee, when she comes out, she stole the belt. She's wearing Becky's Intercontinental belt, right? That's the women's Intercontinental title, right? Correct. I wasn't sure what they had named it, but I'm shifting my hip hurts. Nevertheless, Becky's pissed. You're greatest of all time. And the people chant, "You suck, you suck." And Becky starts having that meltdown again where she's screaming at people and she's losing her temper, and they start chanting therapy. Again, it's perfect. Becky takes off her glasses. She's got a black eye from what AJ did to her the other night. And anyway, she's screaming, "Give me my belt back." And AJ's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I completely forgot that I've been skipping around my house with this for the past few days. And just being a smart ass." And she said, "Tell you what, come and get it, Becky. Here it is. Come and get it." And Becky doesn't come in and get it. Now the people start chanting chicken. It's like they paid these people to be extras in the goddamn deal. They're on cue. They're perfect. And then Becky says, where's your husband? And they chant, "CM Punk, CM Punk." And Becky cuts some promos and brings her husband out. They play Seth's music. Seth comes down the aisle to Becky and says, "I'll take care of this." And he tells AJ, "It's easy, just give Becky her belt back and we can all leave." And AJ said, "Well, we could do that, or Becky could take it and get another black eye, or I'll give it back to you if you'll agree to a tag team match, playa." And Becky's like, "No, we're not gonna, no," and says, I'll take care of this." And he goes in the ring and he's gonna get the belt. And he starts to pick the belt up and AJ steps over. And she jumps sideways and she blocks. And she jumps the other way and she blocks. And Seth starts getting stern with her, and suddenly here comes Punk out with no music, whatever, from behind Seth, picks him up for the go to sleep. Seth slips it and bails out. And now Seth is pissed. "If you want a match, you got it." And Becky's like, "No."
As an older adult, I didn't want to spend all my time binge watching television, so I said, let me go back to school. I have a son who actually also graduated from the Purdue Global program.
And AJ tosses the belt at Becky, and now we got the match for WrestlePalooza. This is fucking great. Again, it's wrestling. The guy and his wife are gonna fight. The guy and his wife. I want to see that
I
shit.
have many fun memories. That's a good play.
Nobody has to be hospitalized to do an angle here. It's made. The people are working with them.
You know, you brought up world class earlier in the show, and the big difference is
Yeah,
obviously
cancel.
that Precious and Sunshine were valets; they weren't wrestlers. What should the
You
match
in
be?
your channel?
Going with the idea that this match won't be the end of the feud.
Well, and again, I mentioned earlier they shouldn't wrestle because if they all work, if this is a family fucking fight, and if they all work a fight, and I'm suggesting that Seth and Punk have more of a fight. By a fight, I'm not talking about a garbage match with furniture all over the building. I'm talking about a rough, believable conflict, and do enough to milk
What's that guy?
the girls getting a hold of each other, because Becky's not gonna want to fucking get a hold of AJ. It's almost
I
like
can't remember his name.
an old-fashioned manager match where the heel manager might
The
get
best
shot
freaking
in
pianist.
against the babyface girl.
Believe me,
Before
no.
the babyface girl finally gets her hands on him,
No.
on her to get the heat right. But Becky and
Oh,
AJ
Beethoven?
don't
Was it
need to be
Beethoven?
doing
I haven't looked it up
hurricanranas
yet,
off
but
the
I don't
top
know yet.
rope and dives out of the ring unless it's a flying fence press off the apron to tackle the Becky when she's trying to get away or whatever, that type of thing. They need to have, and for lack of a better word, a good old cat fight. You know what people are going to fucking see? They don't want to see them wrestle. That defeats the purpose. They're supposed to be mad at each other, and it's a wife against a wife, not a girl wrestler against a girl wrestler. And I don't know if I would be mad if they brought this back, if the heels went over the first time in such a way that it necessitated some type of not ridiculous stipulation to bring it back again, or to do some kind of offshoot where Seth and Punk have the match, but whoever wins, their wife gets the other wife for 5 minutes in a disadvantageous position, or whatever. Keep the personal issue going.
And what do you say to that? And what do you say to the fan that says Jim Cornette's being unfair? He hated it when Kenny Omega teamed with a woman or whatever intergender stuff they did on AEW. What's the difference?
Those people, number one, weren't over. Number two, the fans weren't demanding it before they actually did it. Number three, the performers involved didn't nearly have the verbal talent or the booking philosophy that this has had so far and that they have behind it. Need not go on. It's just mindless. Oh, this girl does wonderful cross bodies like I do. Maybe we can do a cross body together in the match, rather than, no, it's my wife who's also a fucking ex-wrestler and can come in and have a mixed tag with this other famous main event level married fucking couple. Jesus Christ, it's not that hard to fucking figure out.
Let me hear it, Bart.
It's just doing
Gotta
silly
play some
wrestling
shorts.
moves versus
The
getting
keyboard
people
playing.
involved in a goddamn issue between main event level stars that they can believe down deep, or at least put aside their knowledge to the contrary, are mad at each other, want to pull each other's hair out. Can't fight.
Weird thought, but in some ways this is so much, this period of time, not just this angle, but this is so much more the way this is set up, like the way it would have been done in a territory versus wrestling in terms of the turnaround. They're doing angles now that set up pay-per-views like within a week or two out. It used to be months out. Like you kind of knew 2 months before pay-per-view what a lot of the matches were going to be, because it was going to be building towards it. Now there's so many that it's like you're building to something that's going to be on next week.
Yeah, and the thing there is, because there's not only the monthly pay-per-view, but there's the Saturday night's main events, and there's the, well, multiple night pay-per-views, 2 of them down in Centris, so you can build talent always, just individual talent, and you can start teasing issues amongst talent that are over, but you can't really specifically promote a match or a goddamn specific stipulation or whatever more than a couple weeks out now, because like you said, if people forget about it, it'll get confused with the other shit. So there is a bonus to that, at least if you have it planned out in advance. If nobody gets hurt, nothing goes wrong, here's what we want to do. Then when you announce it, at least when you're doing something like this, it has some level of immediacy where people are like, oh shit, if they like something and it's going to happen next week, they ain't got time to get sour on it or forget about it or just get used to it. So there's that. That's why, the old weekly territories that can pivot around and bring stuff back, if it got over,
What?
they had that
Make it
immediacy working for them.
That's what happens to toothpaste when you let it sit for a long time. Turns all crusty. Tartar. Damn it. Tartar. Calculus. You guys hear those crickets?
Style starts with the difference between mid and next level. A real movie that hits. Lifetime guarantee. 36,000 5-star.
That was clear.
Every new order.
Need a toolkit? There's 3 great options from Harbor Freight. The Pittsburgh 130-piece kit is compact, portable,
Yeah.
and packed with essentials.
The tablets.
Perfect for home repairs and DIYers.
This one supposedly doesn't have as much caffeine.
Toolkit provides more specialty tools for even greater versatility. And finally, this 301-piece mechanics toolkit includes the most used automotive and mechanics tools. No matter what you're working on, find the toolkit you need at Harbor Freight.
After seeing what they did with John Cena's interview, which opened the show, can somebody go find The Rock and ball gag him, bind his hands behind his back, tied along with his brain up his ass? Why did he gave the most incredible babyface promo with the huge ovation with "Thank you, Cena" chants, where he couldn't talk for minutes because it's his last time on SmackDown. And 3 months ago, they had him coming out and telling all the people to go piss up a rope. What the fuck was the matter with them now that I see this?
Remember when everyone jumped on me and said, "This will all make sense"? You're wrong. This is all good. You see, it got a big pop. Everyone's talking about it. It was not well thought out, not well done. Forget about Travis Scott, who was kind of in the middle of the whole thing. That didn't work out either. The Rock now looks like he's half the size that he was 6 months ago. So that
He's half the man he used to be.
And apparently he's trying as hard as he can to be considered serious as an actor right now. It may be hard because everything you see him in, it's Dwayne Johnson trying to act. But he ain't going to be back anytime soon.
And no, at the same point though, now, since he's lost 50 pounds, we're sure of one thing, he ain't gonna wrestle. And you know,
I have to make a babyface. If a bunch of heels beat up on the sickly-looking Rock, doesn't it make
no,
you like this?
but if I was the Rock and I could have gotten the shape that I was in as he's in, or you know what I'm saying, over the last year or two, I'd have had a goddamn match with Roman Reigns just to do a family member a fucking favor, instead of trying to be the final boss and pissing everybody's post toasties. But anyway, back to Cena in the ring here. He even said, "I've dodged roadblocks and pivots." But you guys, you know, I'm so grateful to Chicago for always being critical of him, but making him work for it, and he left it all out there on his final tour, and he put them over strong and talked about how they bring their power. They got the power. They bring people back, and the people start chanting, "AJ,
I don't want to go
which
to
was pretty
rehab.
cool.
No.
I'm just saying this was so well put together. It's his last time in Chicago, last time on SmackDown. It was 23 years ago in that very building, and I, of course, did not remember that, where he came down and slapped Kurt Angle. And he talked about the big matches in Chicago, but he got pops for each one of them. He wasn't somebody standing there saying, "When I faced Oblivion J. Jones in Korakuen Hall in fucking Tokyo," and people are reading. And he said Chicago was the greatest WWE crowd, and the people were left chanting, "Thank you, Cena." One of the great babyface promos of anybody's, history. And he said, "Thank you for the beautiful ride." And the music plays. And it's Sami Zayn's music. It's that commie dirtbag Sami Zayn.
This is Buick. exceptional by design. Get 0.9% APR on these 2025 Buick models. Plus, current eligible non-GM owners get up to $3,000 allowance on Encore GX.
Who could ever like him?
Seemingly no one. The fans were ready to boo him right away. Didn't it seem
I
like that?
know, because no, and here's the thing: if you had played goddamn Tinkerbell's music and had the fairy come out and sprinkle fairy dust, they would have booed because they thought it was a turn coming, and it was great.
Before it said, somebody said that Sam smoking wants to be
gonna happen, and they didn't fuck with him.
I'm on a streak.
They got their shit in and had a ball doing it. Because Sami Zayn can talk his ass
Lifelong
off.
streak, by the way. Not
He
one.
was, again,
Not
so
one.
fucking. I hate him when he was a mute. Again, what is my timing? What is life? But that's the thing. As soon as his music came down, as he started to speak, they were booing the shit out of him because they just
it?
knew.
Is it
Oh my
500
God,
cigarettes
he's
or
gonna kick him in
5,000
the balls
cigarettes?
or some shit, right? And the scene even said, "It's happy hour in Chicago. I'm here for the booze." And then, as Sammy, they're booing him, but when he starts
That's right,
talking, at
500.
least they're not just doing the fake boo where they're trying to drown him out. It's where they're genuinely expressing displeasure at what they think he's going to do. But when he says, "John, I want to say thank you from the boys in the back. Thank you for what you did for me." Now they started warming up a little bit. They're like, okay, well, now we don't know, but we'll just not shit on him right directly. And then a little history, and I'm sure this is why they had this match. Again, I'm sure there's folks out there that will remember this happening fondly. I didn't even see it and didn't give a shit. But Sammy's debut was apparently against John Cena for the U.S. title. And Cena was doing the
Don't just take classes, take charge. Start your comeback today at PurdueGlobal.edu.
was doing the open challenge thing, right? So now he is the U.S. champion, and he wants to pay it forward. And he wanted to, introduce or institute the Sami Zayn U.S. Open Challenge. And John's like, oh, I like the idea. Okay. And he starts to, yeah, do it. And he's going to leave. And Sam, not so quick. And now again, they're like,
You gotta go play it.
But then you can kind of tell by the demeanor, Sammy wants to defend the U.S. title against Cena, to share a ring with him, to give him what he gave Sammy years ago. I shot at the U.S. title, and now the crowd's roaring, yay, yes! And how about in Chicago? Yay! Right now, yes, yeah! I mean, people are just throwing the babies and goddamn fondling themselves. And then Sammy says, if you want some, the whole crowd said, come get some. And Cena milks it, and Sammy's got his hand out, and Cena says, you're on, and they shake and they pop again. It was like, Jesus Christ, Brian, I'm just saying, how could you have done this any better than what they just did this?
I mean, in terms of setting up an angle for a match on the show between two baby faces, I guess they did it pretty good. It did seem like the fans were kind of ready to boo Sammy. And I think there's something interesting
gonna
here. I
get
don't think
the
it was just
bird.
about someone's coming out here to confront Cena or talk to Cena. I think it may have been specific to Sammy too. You know, we have seen like kind of the pacifist pansy character for a long time. And I know they teased the idea that like Karrion Kross was trying to get to his soul and change him back to who he's supposed to be. And I think there was a
Unemployed?
I think there was a segment of the fan base that was kind of like getting behind that, and then Karrion Kross is gone, and we're just right back to Sammy being, you know, again, the pacifist pansy.
I was saying, you think maybe some people who like Sammy were like, oh shit, if he turned heel, he'd get a bigger push.
I think there is some of that too, because there is a dedicated Sami Zayn fan base that like think he should be the world champion. But well, it did seem like Chicago. It did seem like they were ready to boo Sammy, and he had to kind of work overtime to get them to not boo him. And again, it wasn't going to kick him in the balls or anything. So, now with that said, I thought it was a really intriguing segment. And like you alluded to at the top, when I watch SmackDown or Raw, I'm just always waiting for the ball to drop. You know, I'm always waiting for like, oh, something's gonna happen, and this is gonna become unwatchable anytime now. And they kept my attention throughout this, and I was very curious to see how they're gonna do the match, because I don't think Cena's gonna win the U.S. title. Is Cena gonna put over Sammy? I mean, that'd be an interesting move on his way out before the Brock match. And then, of course, we got the match, but I thought it was a really good angle.
Well, and that's the thing is that, I'm sorry, but it's just obvious. They have a large crowd that knows everything that's going on because it's simple enough to keep the basics of the people that you like in your head rather than this constant chaos that you get other places. And it's stars, and it's people that are recognized, and it's a show that's produced well. And details are not forgotten. And now you got two baby faces, but they're just amped to see Cena's last match in Chicago. And still, what's going to happen? You don't know. Well, let's fade to another subject. You want to? I got something here, Brian, that surprised the heck out of me. And this is more information from the Pfeffer Files up there in Notre Dame, but also can be cross-referenced with the fine Wrestling at the Garden book, The Battle for New York, Scott Teal, CrowbarPress.com, The History of Wrestling in Madison Square Garden, to indicate that I think the payoffs for Madison Square Garden may have gone down when Vince Sr. took over, because I got, again, just two shows here we're going to talk about. But Ricky Starr payoffs for March 1957, two shows at Madison Square Garden, where he was not even the main event on either one of them. But he was a top attraction at the time. Obviously, the younger folks, Ricky Starr he had a legitimate ballet dancing training, and he also was a legitimate wrestler and combined these and had like a Caucasian rocka type of gimmick in the late 50s that he made a lot of money with, and it went to England for years and years, lived there. But nevertheless, on March 11th, 1957, Madison Square Garden, They drew 19,995 people and paid $62,565. Okay, that's the official attendance and gate. And the main event was Rocca over Hans Schmidt, who was the hot German heel at the time.
Oh yeah, that's a big match.
And the semifinal was Ricky Starr over Dick the Bruiser. So, again, Ricky Starr was the next to last match, even though he was a pretty big name. But this is the period of time when Pfeffer had a lot of fucking control. The Fargos were on this card. They just put the Fargos together. There were talents that were working for Vince Sr. in Capital Wrestling in Washington, but as we mentioned, the Garden promoters were able and had their own wrestling advisors, including Cola Quariani, who was the key to Rocca, and so they picked and chose talent. But Pfeffer had a piece of Rocca, or had a piece of Ricky Starr, rather.
Yeah.
Which is why that his payoffs are recorded in Pfeffer's files. He got $2,500 for that semifinal match in the Garden on a $62,000 house.
What was the date of that show again?
March 11, 1957.
Okay.
$2,500 in 1957. It's like fucking 11, almost $12 to 1 today. So that would be the equivalent of around 30 grand in fucking today's purchasing power, as they say, for a fucking semifinal match in Madison Square Garden. But he was, and then we've also got documentation that a few years later, the Fargos were a main event or a semifinal match and got like $1,000. Of course, they were in a tag, but this guy was being taken care of. And then he comes back. Hold on, got to turn page. On March the 30th, 1957. They draw 20,125 people and $63,753, so about $1,000 more than another 130 people. And Rocca and Perez are on top against Fargo and Don Stevens, who would later become Don Fargo. That was the night they sold out the Garden, the big record house that they always bragged of, right? But the semifinal was Ricky Starr against Paul Bunyan, who I am pretty positive was that giant lurch-like character that used to also work as Max Palmer. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know the name, but I can't. As I try to think about it, I can't put an image to it.
He was a big, lumbering, kind of normal-looking guy. They billed him. He was in some movies and TV. They billed him at 8'2", which was a big exaggeration because that would have put him, I think, at that point as the world's tallest man or second place or whatever. But he was like as big as El Gigante, tall. He just wasn't an athlete or anything, but they used him in wrestling in the late 50s. He made movies, I think it's Max Palmer. His wrestling gimmick in a lot of places was Paul Bunyan. It was a 3-minute and 55-second match. So one would have to think that it was a freak show type of thing that Pfeffer would have loved. And I believe that's why he probably represented this guy, now that I'm talking this through. Ricky Starr got another $2,500. So he made, for 2 shows at Madison Square Garden in the month of March 1957, just working 2 nights, he made $5,000, which is the equivalent today of almost 70 grand.
What would Pfeffer's cut have been?
That is not recorded, but I assume since he had however many other fucking wrestlers and he's booking all these guys out of the Garden, the Fargos were giving him, when he found them here. and sent him to Tennessee, and then they were giving him an equal payoff as their manager, even though he was not there. Everywhere they were booked on the road through him, if they made $50, he made $50. Whatever they made each. Jackie 50, Don 50, Pfeffer 50. And there's the letters in the Pfeffer files that, again, I've got to go through and put some dates and places to the records they have and see what kind of gates these guys were doing and the various pay scales, but they were on a weekly basis writing in with what they got paid and sending him his cut. His bundles, the bundles as he called them. Apparently a wad of a payoff or any kind of wad of money was a bundle. But think about that. This fucking guy at Ricky Star, he was working all over the Northeast at the time, and in places like Baltimore and fucking Philadelphia, and he was big and he got big shots in Chicago, and at one point worked in a variety of places across the country, making that kind of money as an attraction like that. It's insane.
And he's just one guy that Pfeffer was booking out. Pfeffer was a one-man booking office that mentioned the Fargos, various other people. So it wasn't like that was the only money Pfeffer had coming in. And from what you've seen, and I don't want to spoil any future segments you're going to do on this, but the relationship between Pfeffer and Jackie Fargo, was it as good with Pfeffer and Don Fargo? Was it different? How would you compare the relationships from what you've seen?
Well, it didn't last as long as Jackie's. And that's Don, for whatever reason, and I think because it was a pattern of his career, he just wanted to leave and go places. I don't even know whether he had a reason a lot of times, but when he originally left the Fargo's team, you see letters he reported in for a short period of time, but then he was on his own. Pfeffer was not booking him. Pfeffer still kept a relationship with Jackie where even in 62, 63, 64, when Jackie was mostly based out of Tennessee and was really getting over there, Pfeffer would get him shots in Chicago. Remember we talked about when Pfeffer took over Chicago with Fred Kohler and ran it into the ground, and then there's records there that show how bad the losses were.
63 and 64, yeah.
But Pfeffer brought Jackie Fargo in as the world champion. That was his new buddy Rogers. And people have seen film of Fargo when he was in his 40s and the 70s, but he did look. He never had the physique of Buddy Rogers, but he could pass. He was very Pfeffer-like, and he could pass close enough.
What's the oldest Jackie Fargo footage you have seen?
There is something from, I think, Nashville off of silent 8mm film of a 6-man tag, and I can't remember where I've seen it. And I think it's from around probably the mid-60s. And otherwise, it's the 1972 match with Al Green that sold out the Mid-South Coliseum for wrestling for the first time.
I love the way Al Green throws his punches at Jackie Fargo in the corner in that match.
Boy, howdy. I love the way that Fargo stands in front of him, even though he knows what's going to happen. But nevertheless, then Pfeffer brought Jackie Fargo to Boston for Tony Santos during Tony Santos' final year or years promoting Boston, and pushed him as the world champion there. And he had still gotten Fargo to the Madison Square Garden cards as late as, I think it was either 61 or 62, one or the other, with Jackie and Roughhouse, Sonny. And see, that's the thing. You see that Jackie was making, $80 or $100 or $120, whatever it was in Memphis or Nashville. But when Pfeffer would get him these outshots on these runs, he'd make several $100s in Chicago, or he'd make $1,000 in the Garden, or he'd make $500 or $600, $700 in Boston. And it wasn't until after 64 Pfeffer lost his connections, and you know, then they weren't coming. And then through 65, 66, Jackie's over in the Tennessee territory. They're giving him towns to run. He's partners in businesses with Eddie Bond, the country music guy that used to tour with Carl Perkins and Elvis and all these people. He's on the radio. And, you know, he's tired of sitting Pfeffer his cut. And then finally, something happened, which hopefully we will find out more specifics about. But by 67, Jackie broke his relationship off with Pfeffer, and there was no more money involved in that famous meeting they had in the locker room in Nashville with Gulas and Welch and Christine and Fargo and Pfeffer. And then the black cats start popping up every time you see a fucking anything from the Tennessee
What's
office.
up, Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, it must be a difficult conversation when you get to the point where he's no longer booking you out anywhere because you don't need to be booked out anywhere. You're working in the territory that you live. Are you supposed to pay Pfeffer forever? Based on that?
Well, you know, you've always got to pay the Pfeffer. Whether it be Peter Pfeffer or Jack Pfeffer. Anyhow,
Ricky Starr, he's one of those names,
yes.
like if you ever meet fans from like right before Gorilla Monsoon, even though like, you know, we talked about Gorilla last week, so I'll say it, but even though there are fans who were still there, like the previous era, Rocka, Ricky Starr is a name that always comes up. I remember seeing Ricky Starr, whether it was the ballet slippers or, you know, the mannerisms in the ring, whatever it was, he stood out to a lot of the fans that saw him.
and you know, again, then probably more of our British fans will remember him because he
Jim
spent
Cornette.
the last years and years of his career there. He came back to the States maybe once before he retired, and
Lanny Poffo based a lot of his stuff, especially later on as the Genius, on the mannerisms in the ring of Ricky Starr, right?
I think he did. I believe he did. I might have seen him do it. Speaking of being all wet, did you hear what happened in the news? Did you hear who got in legal difficulties, Brian? Did you hear who got arrested?
Who got arrested that was like a big deal, the story? No, I don't know.
It was a pretty unusual thing that happened. Something you don't see every day or find around the house. You didn't see this, did you?
I'm not sure where you're going, though.
Chuck E. Cheese got arrested. Walked out of the restaurant in handcuffs. You didn't see this on the news? They had body cam footage.
I must have missed this. You watch, what is this, your furry news that you watch? Where did you see this?
No, this was on, it was actually, I saw it both on the local news and on the national news, and it was repeated in various day parts of the local news, but I was watching it and I didn't even pay attention to the location of the place. I don't know where it was in the United States, but I'm sure it's the only time it's happened this week, so if you're interested, you can Google it, but the cops went into a Chuck E. Cheese. And well, you got kids, you've been at Chuck E. Cheese, where they have the guy that's Chucky. The fucking, what is E. Cheese? And well, you got kids, you've been at Chuck E. Cheese, where they have the guy that's Chucky. The fucking, what is he, a rabbit? I don't know what kind of
It's a
animal
mouse.
he is.
Or a rat.
A mouse?
A mouse, not a rat. A mouse.
Well, he's a rat now. He's what kind of bird don't fly? He's a jailbird.
He's a mouse. He loves cheese. That's why he's had Chucky. That's why he's named Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, there you go. Well, old Chucky, the cops went into Chuck E. Cheese's restaurant and they went right up to Chucky in costume and turned him around and handcuffed his ass and walked him out the parking lot and put him in the fucking squad car.
With the head on?
With the head on. They didn't take the fucking head off until he was standing outside the police car. There is video. They walked a fucking giant mouse. It had passed the children. The restaurant was open. Think of the children, Brian. What would you do if you took your children to Chuck E. Cheese and the cops came in and not only, and he was doing a photo op. They took him out of the photo op with the fucking Yes, I said, come here. We need to talk to you.
Well, hold on. What was he arrested for? We haven't even said that. What did he do?
Well, here's the thing. Old Chucky, he had a side job. Apparently, this woman called the police and said, hey, I was at Chuck E. Cheese and they stole my credit card.
Oh.
And I believe that Chucky might have my credit card. And then the cops came and they pulled her credit card out of Chucky's fucking pocket or pouch or whatever a mouse has that he keeps his credit cards in. My face hurts from telling that
That's a
story.
great idea for like a burglar. Like I'll get a job at a theme park in a costume where I could hug everyone and pat everyone on the back and they wouldn't think anything of it. Of course Mickey Mouse is patting me on the back.
And in reality, it's the Artful Dodger. But the thing is, but I'm not excusing Chucky must go to jail. Chucky got to go down. Chucky's in trouble. Yes, he is.
They can't get Roger Jackson, but Chuck E. Cheese is off the streets.
No,
ladies and
Chucky,
gentlemen.
they sent a team in. Roger Jackson is still hanging around, but they sent a team in but here, can both of these things be wrong? But Chucky must go to pay penance for his sins of stealing a credit card, especially on duty in uniform. See, that's a betrayal of the public trust. But did the cops have to? Couldn't they at least have taken his head off in the restaurant to show the little children that it was?
No, that's probably why they didn't. That's probably the exact reason. You just hit your
No, but they can say it's it's a fake Chucky. It's not the real Chucky.
But the kids don't know
The
that.
real Chucky's a good person. This is a fake. See, we're arresting him for being a Chucky imposter.
Would you arrest a Santa Claus in front of kids?
You can't put Santa Claus in front of handcuffs and perp walk him out the goddamn door in front of children, can you?
Well, because it would destroy the myth of. I mean, this is clearly not Santa Claus at that point.
Why? It would give them some kind of bad taste in their mouth about Christmas and Santa Claus. Now these people they're going to grow up and hate pizza like you do.
No.
Is that what happened to you,
I
Brian?
love pizza. You don't have any respect
Did you
for
see
pizza.
Chucky?
Don't start that. That's not-
Were you digging into some goddamn pepperoni sausage pizza as a child, and then all of a sudden you saw Chucky burp walked out and fucking frisked over the cop car,
Yeah, you figured it out.
and then you've got trauma?
You know, at these kids' birthday parties, they don't typically have sausage and bacon pizza, whatever the fuck you eat. They have
Hey, if
regular
I went
pizza.
to a party and didn't have any kind of meat on pizza, I'd fucking leave the goddamn party, even when I was a kid. What a kind of fucking cheap ass.
If you're a parent, you can explain away Chucky leaving with the police, like, oh, they want to talk to their friend Chucky. Maybe he's helping them.
No, they want to talk to that guy, put him in handcuffs, and they just got his hands on him as he's fucking walking him out.
Oh, they're playing some kind of game that they always play.
No,
When you
no.
take the head off, you'll ruin the whole thing. These kids are going to be traumatized.
Well, but no,
Chucky
because
caused.
Chucky is screaming, I work here, and the cop's saying, I know you work here.
Is that what happened? You're screaming at work here?
Yes, I work here, I know you work here.
What was the giveaway? What was the giveaway?
The clue. Because importantly, if you just go into most pizza places at lunchtime, you're going to see giant mice.
Now, Chucky, from the best of my memory, Chuck E. Cheese, they used to have an animatronic band. I don't think they have that anymore, but he always had friends. He had other furry creatures who love pizza. What were they doing? Were they there at all?
Not one of these son of a bitches stepped up to vouch for him, I'll tell you that. They were all hiding in their dens and burrows, apparently.
There's more loyalty in McDonald land.
Oh yeah, all of them stick together. Well, it's because of Mayor McCheese and his lax policies.
You wouldn't push me if I were you.
Loyalty in McDonald land.
Oh yeah, all of them stick together. Well, it's because of Mayor McCheese and his lax policies.
So what happened? Did he get charged with anything? Does he even
Yes, he got yes.
He's ready to show up for the trial in the same outfit now. That thing is
Google his goddamn name.
Hold on.
Yeah, don't Google his name. Get Chucky. Google Chucky. No, Google Chucky arrested. I guarantee you.
Oh, that was the first thing that popped up. Chuck E. Cheese arrested. This is from CNN, newly released video. Hold on, I have to agree to something here. Newly released video showing a man arrested while wearing a Chuck E. Cheese costume. Police in Florida have released body cam footage. So it's Florida, of course.
Yeah.
He was charged with credit card theft and fraud charges.
Oh, what was his name? Did they give his real given Christian name, or is he still known as Chucky?
They did not have a name there. Hold on, let me go to this Tallahassee newspaper. It wants me to pay $1 for the first month. I don't want any months. I want for one article, assholes. Confusion and anger of children and their parents at a Chuck E. Cheese in Tallahassee, Florida has gone viral in newly released body cam footage of a mascot being escorted out of the location in handcuffs. Does it have his name? His name is Jermel Giroux Jones, and he's 41 years old.
Jamel Giroux Jones.
I wonder if he's named after Al Giroux, or at least the Giroux part.
I was thinking of Al Giroux, that could possibly be, but also perhaps his parents were Spider-Man fans and they just wanted their own J. Jonah Jameson.
You ever see that We Are the World documentary? Where it's a pretty cool documentary. They're recounting how the whole thing happened. I think right after the American Music Awards, and Al Giroux was bombed. He got drunk as soon as they got there. He's like, well, he's getting in the mood of saving children, I guess, and he just got bombed, completely drunk. I have audio. Hold on, I have some audio here, Jim. Let's get this one.
What?
Here's Chucky's, here's the body cam of Chucky. Here he is in his outfit with a bunch of kids and a family there. Let's see.
Come on, Chucky. Come with me, Chucky. Come on, Chucky. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Let it go. Let it go. Do not cross the scene here, sir.
Oh, goodness.
This is CBS in Chicago.
Chucky, stop resisting, Chucky!
That the fact that they're calling him Chucky, I mean, that makes it seem fake. It doesn't even seem real.
Here's the kids got no! Mother, no!
Oh my God. This is so funny. Well, there it is. Chuck E. Cheese arrest. Oh, here's the entire 20-minute body cam footage.
A Chuck E. Cheese customer reported a worker to police after seeing he used her stolen credit card on camera. An officer first went into the Chuck E. Cheese to use the bathroom and tried to identify the suspect.
Well, here's him getting arrested. Let's see.
We'll talk to you in a minute. Let you know what's going on, okay? Alright, that's fine.
I don't know if you hear him, he's muffled, but they have it up here. I don't know shit about nothing, is what he's saying. I'm working, entertaining kids for a living.
I got you, buddy. Come over here. You got anything on you? Don't be stick me stabbing. You got anything on you?
He's still in the mask here for seeing him. He's in the...
Does this come off? Does this just come off without? Oh, I heard you. Oh, work here. I understand you work here.
They put the Chuck E. Cheese head on the roof of the cop car, so maybe it wasn't about not traumatizing the kids at all.
Yeah, they cut Chucky's head off and they're displaying it like trophy children.
When he said, does this come off, he should have said no. Why would you say yeah? Why would you say no?
He's a gangster to pull on it. He's going, ow, ow, ow.
We're gonna talk to you in a second. How does this come off, man? Is it just like a... Yeah, we'll do it. Put it in front of you and then go from there. Search him as best you can. I know he's probably got internal panic, but... I gotta do a twist. What is going on? Just pat him down. Just pat him down for now. I just make sure there's nothing crazy. You have any weapons, knives?
Jeez.
Okay, perfect.
They're putting him in the cop car, and again, it's a 20-minute video.
You think he had any contraband cheese shoved up his ass to take to the pen?
The name of the video is Chuck E. Cheese mascot steals credit card and regrets it. All right, well, it's this kind of news that you can only get here on this show. There's only one wrestling podcast out there giving you the latest wrestling news, wrestling history, as well as mascots going down. And that's the Jim Cornette Experience.
Where's Ricky Lee Jones when you need her? The Chucky's in jail, yes he is. Chucky's
When
in
you first said Chucky got arrested, I don't know why. My first thought was Dances with Dudley got arrested.
I was thinking of the Chucky, the redheaded Chucky doll, Chucky. But they never arrest Chucky. They don't have the guts.
Did you see that when it first came out? I know you were working a lot, but Child's Play?
Yes. Oh, yes. That I love that type of thing. The spooky. That type of thing. The spooky doll, the haunted doll, it goes all the way back to Telly Savalas and the Talking Tina episode of The Twilight Zone, or the various other TV movies with the voodoo dolls, with Karen.
Play it,
Black,
Cheeseburger Battalion the Third.
the
Oh, that's
animated
still
horrified.
That's
Yes.
still scary, the Karen Black one, yeah.
Yeah, she was a little spooky too. Till you got to know.
Well, the name didn't help. Just sounds so.
So final. Fade to black.
What's up? Play it. Doing okay. Doing good. What about you, Playa? You said something about it, a little bit.
Birth of a new legend. They don't come around every day.
Precious and Sunshine and fucking insert babyface here, Chris Adams. This is tremendous. And SmackDown featured both of these things and was the best SmackDown that they've done in ages, because they only had an hour in between the Cena stuff and the Punk and AJ and Seth and Becky stuff to lure us with. Normally you gotta wait an hour and a half at least in the middle. Am I exaggerating?
Mush.
Oh, no.
At least an hour and a half.
At least.
But no. And after seeing what they did with John Cena's interview, which opened the show, can somebody go find the
Playing
Rock,
trying.
ball gag him, bind
Gotta
his
get the
hands
olive oil
behind
out,
his back,
which I heard is
tied along with his brain up his ass? Why did he gave the most incredible babyface promo with the huge ovation with "Thank you, Cena" chants, where he couldn't talk for minutes because it's his last time on SmackDown. And 3 months ago, they had him coming out and telling all the people to go piss up a rope. What the fuck was the matter with them now that I see this?
Remember when everyone jumped on me and said, "This will all make sense"? You're wrong. This is all good. You see, it got a big pop. Everyone's talking about it. It was not well thought
Well, I guess something that's topical this weekend especially is wrestlers acting like idiots on airplanes. And we're going to talk, obviously, here just shortly to Evan Husney, one of the creators of Dark Side of the Ring. But I've heard the story of this flight, and I've been around wrestlers and or the wrestling business for 40-something years, and still, when it's put in front of you with visual recreations and firsthand, because I wasn't on the flight, thank goodness, firsthand testimony, it gets even stupider. And a lot of people, and we're going to explore this throughout the program and the interview with Evan, a lot of people have said, oh, well, this is the way wrestlers used to act, and they don't anymore. Well, that may be true, but it's not the way that wrestlers always used to act. Again, there's a disconnect between what people think the wrestling of the territory days was, what this was, and what the cleaned up version is now. The point is, I've been on planes in the 80s and 90s, private planes and commercial planes, with a lot of wrestlers, including some of the individuals that were on this flight. And I've never seen shit like that before in my life.
Style and substance in the GMC Sierra. More kit servers and APR plus 3100 total value on the Sierra 1500 model.
And I don't know, I think I know, and we'll talk about this, some of the reasons why that guys started acting that way then, but I wanted to recount some of my more innocent plane stories just to give you an idea of in the 80s when I first started flying with wrestlers to begin with. It was before 9/11. You know, we've told funny stories about how, you know, they just hand out guys tickets if they left the territory, and I would fly as Ole Anderson, or the Barbarian's ticket would be written out as A/Barbarian to kayfabe his real name. And it passed, it flew, no pun intended. But the guys were not going on commercial flights with the thought of attracting even before 9/11 and all the extra security, with the thought of attracting the fucking attention of federal authorities by fucking up in some kind of spectacular way. And whenever somebody would, infrequently, you heard about Chris Adams, right? It went to court, and did he go to jail?
He went to jail.
He went to jail. Because he got drunk on a long flight and headbutted the flight attendant and blah, 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 but that was not like ordinary behavior amongst all the hundreds of wrestlers that took thousands of flights in that era. Right? There wasn't a lot of that shit.
Every now and then you hear a story about like guys like the Funks or Buck Rowley or someone coming back from Japan and maybe having a good time on that flight, but it was nothing to this level, obviously. And like you said, it wasn't like everyone was doing this.
No. And I mean, you know, as I said, we used to do harmless things. I hate to tell stories twice. Yeah, sure, Cornette. But no, I do. But there's so many new listeners, and it's been a few years since I've told some of these stories. But the guys would fuck with each other on a commercial flight sometimes, yes, but not in a goddamn way that would require the intervention of the authorities in most cases. And Hennig, he was always a ripper, right? I've told the story, Stan Lane's, the Fabulous Ones, they're in the AWA, they're on a plane going somewhere, and Stan's wearing the Zubaz and freeballing, as most all the guys did, and he's with both hands shoving his carry-on bag in the overhead. Well, there's this businessman in a suit and tie sitting on the aisle seat, right? He's reaching right over him. And Hennig sees the opportunity. Both of Stan's hands are busy, so he just reached over across the aisle and fucking grabbed Stan's Zubaz and passed him down to his ankles, and Stan's fucking member is dangling in the fucking guy's face. He goes, no. His hands trying one hand on the bag because it weighs 40 pounds and one hand trying to reach for his pants. It's funny, I'm sorry. The guys are fucking with each other. But nobody needed to go to jail over that, or rehab, or whatever the fuck. Stan used to get me. He got me one time. I've told this story at some of the live shows. Back then, especially early morning flights, I've always hated flying. I've always been terrified of it, especially questionable weather, whatever. So I would stay up most all, if not all night, and so I would be exhausted and try to go to sleep on the plane so it would pass by quicker, right? And I would always have plenty of reading material, books and magazines, so I would sit in my little cocoon in my seat, and I'd close the window shade, and I'd try to be on the aisleway where I had some air coming to my face, and I would immerse myself in whatever I was reading, and if it was a smooth flight, I would nod off. Well, sometimes Stan would do the thing, if he's sitting behind me, roll a magazine up where he had some reach, and he would reach up, and he'd ding the fucking call button for the stewardess. And you hear the dings all the time, so it didn't really wake me up, but then she comes over, standing over, yes, sir, what? And then if you did that to anybody 2 or 3 times, then the stewardess is pissed. They think that you're yanking their chain, blah, blah, blah. One time, Stan goes in his bag, because I've fallen asleep with the People magazine on my tray table, and my head's just down. I'm just, whoa. He goes in his bag and gets a Hustler magazine, and opens to the most gynecologically graphic centerfold, and reaches around me and slides that People magazine out and puts that magazine over the tray table instead, and it looks to the casual observer like I'm staring intently at what looks like a double-bladed axe wound. And every time somebody walks by me on the way to go to the pisser or whatever, they look down, men, women, some old woman, as Stan said, after the fact, looked like she wanted to fucking hit me with her purse. And finally the stewardess comes up and gives me the Iggy on the shoulder, and I wake up and I see the goddamn magazine. And all the boys pop. Nobody was harmed in the making of that motion. That's what the guys used to do. I mean, yes, there's always been somebody's going to have some kind of fucking issue, but we laid low on commercial flights because we're around the general public and we can't be ourselves. When I've talked about Crockett's plane, when Jimmy Crockett got that plane, there would have been a perfect place to abuse the privilege if the guys were going to. They had started expanding so much, and we were doing such a schedule. It had Atlanta TV on Saturday morning and go to Philadelphia on Saturday night. Or one time we actually did on a Sunday, we did Atlanta TV in the morning, Baltimore at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Philly at 7:30 that night. It was fucking insane. And the commercial flights weren't getting it anymore. You couldn't get there from here, so Crockett invested in, it was a G1, a Gulfstream 1. There was an old commuter plane that had been refurbished and used on a private basis. The thing was probably 20 years old at that point, so it was from the 60s. But it was customized inside with, it seated, God, it was a 12 or 14 people, I think. And there were captain's chairs and a couch and a TV with a VCR and a fucking stereo system and, the cooler for ice and a little galley and a pisser and the whole 9 yards. And it had been a commuter plane, as I said, to see like 30-something, but they customized it for private use. And he bought that thing, and everybody went through the moon about it. Because now we could do Philadelphia and be home in bed in Charlotte in our house at 2:30 in the morning, which was better than some of the drives in the territory. And you could make that, Asheville, North Carolina, Roanoke, Virginia double shot on a Sunday and still get home that night, whatever the case. Flair was on all of those flights because it was the top 14 guys until Crockett ended up getting a Falcon jet the next year because the G1 was a prop jet and its top speed was about the same as my goddamn Ford Expedition, it seemed like. It took forever to get set, especially with a headwind. With a headwind, you were fucked. But he got a jet the next year, and then the top 10 guys would go on that, and then the next 14 would go on what we started calling the jabroni jet. Point is, when all those guys were on the plane, Dusty, Magnum, Wyndham, Flair, Arn, Tully, Luger, Road Warriors, Ellering, me, Midnight, Rock and Roll, whoever was on the plane. First of all, on the way to the show, there was no alcohol on the plane. So it wasn't like anybody was tempted. The deal was that we had that plane to make our lives easier, not only make it able where we could get to these shows where we make these ridiculously large payoffs that we were making when business was booming, but we could be home that night earlier if, normally we wouldn't be back till the next day. So the guys didn't want to fuck that up. And also, it was just like being in the locker room. We were all amongst ourselves. I mean, Arn used to pointedly, give those jabs to Nikita because they used to joust verbally, because Nikita started out using his goddamn Russian accent on the plane when it was just us boys, right? And at one point Arn said, "Cue ball, we know you're from Minnesota, drop the accent." But Nikita was really into it, right? But it was a locker room atmosphere in that on the way to the town, nobody's drinking because we got to work that night. But everybody's talking and laughing and whatever. And then when we got there, the pilot's name was Freddie Floyd, which was not a rib on Freddie Joe Floyd or the Briscoes or whatever was his name. And he'd been flying guys in the Carolinas. He was a private aircraft pilot. He'd been flying guys for years. He had a ton of experience. And he always had booked a co-pilot. And when we would go to the town or go to the matches when we landed in the town, we'd give them money and they would go out. If the guys wanted food, they'd get, it might just be a big box of chicken. But, the guys wanted beer, they'd give them money, they'd go back and get whatever. They would have it waiting on the plane when we got back from the show, usually either take cabs to the show and then get rides with the girls back or whatever. And then, that's when everybody would drink, but it was beer. It wasn't like everybody was with their own personal bottle of Jack Daniels. And if guys were doing pills, I'm sure Hawk was. Because he often would get, "Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?" But they did it on their own. There certainly was no hypodermic needles being brought out by anybody, whether they might be a suspect for using that type of thing or not. And everybody, and if Dusty was on the plane, we had to watch the Volunteer Jam fucking DVD, VHS tape, because that was his favorite tape. And at one point I could tell you the goddamn order of the 2-hour show of every performer on it and every song that they sang. Because that's all he ever wanted to watch. But yeah, the guys got drunk. There was never a fight. We're on a fucking small plane with big guys. Nobody wanted to fucking fight. The guys got drunk and fucking, if you went to sleep, you pretty much knew you were going to wake up with all of your hair, but Bobby Eaton may have tied your shoelaces together or tied them to the fucking seat support if he had enough time. Or if you're Tully, we may somehow, your alligator shoes may have got super glued to the fucking floor. We're not sure. But the guys were glad to have that. So they didn't fuck it up and didn't act like idiots, because there may have been guys that were best friends with each other, guys that didn't like each other, just like there is anywhere else, but there weren't these ridiculous tribal cliques to where one group has to fuck with the other group. It was all the boys, babyface and heels.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please do. Go ahead.
This is coming up obviously because of the Dark Side of the Ring episode about the plane ride from hell. There were other plane rides, and when you hear some of the criticism specific to the overall nature, you haven't touched on the sexual harassment or sexual misconduct end of it, but would you say it's fair to say that when people say this is just the way it was always, the boys were always like this, That, in truth, this was a WWE problem?
Yes. And I'll go into it more with Evan, but the guys started. I would not have wanted to go to sleep on a plane with the WWF crew of the late 90s. Whereas I welcomed it on a commercial flight or even on Crockett's flight, although those things were loud. You couldn't really sleep. Because I didn't really want to beat a plane anyway, but I liked I'll tell you this, and then we'll move on to some commercial business. Commercial flights, that is, but again, with Crockett's plane, it was the only sexual harassment I ever saw there because it was all male, to be honest, but I've told this story. Sam Houston, when he was dating Baby Doll before they got married, he got kicked off Crockett's plane for making out with Baby Doll in front of all the boys because we didn't want to see it. And it made everybody uncomfortable, and they kicked him off the plane for that, for making out with his girlfriend. So this was not like the Wild West, where everybody was acting up and going crazy. With the commercial flights later on in the 90s, I, again, did not take a lot of commercial flights with the WWF crew because either I was working in Smoky Mountain and only going up for TV and pay-per-view, or then I was working in the office in Stanford and we were only going over for TV tapings or pay-per-view. So most of the time I wouldn't have wanted to be because I saw how those guys acted. But like I said, the cliques that always wanted to fuck with each other, and it seemed like there was more underlying heat amongst the boys, each other. They were definitely great friends and people that liked to hang around with each other. But there was more actionable heat amongst the boys in the locker room in the WWF in the 90s than I'd seen in the previous territories, NWA places that I'd worked, Crockett, etc. And also, they just felt like they could get away with more shit, and it started to be a one-upsmanship thing where, well, I could do something even, crazier than you did, or whatever. And I've always been uncomfortable on plane. The reason I liked Crockett's plane was because it was more, I knew the pilot. I could see the pilot. I sat on the jump seat on the takeoff because it was set 14 with a jump seat, which was the seat right in between or right behind the pilot and co-pilot. And it was regulations. Everybody had to be strapped in when you do the takeoff. So since I was the junior member of the team and smaller than everybody, I got the jump seat, which was fine with me because I'm sitting there looking at the pilots smiling and having a good time. And that's why I was more comfortable on those planes than I was on commercial planes where you don't know what the fuck's going on. But back to my point, I wouldn't have wanted to go to sleep around those guys because of the whole, the guys in the 80s were taking pills and they didn't give their pills away. And they didn't, at least I never had anybody try to fucking gimmick me. But in the 90s, those guys would give their fucking drugs away to unwilling recipients just to see if they could fuck with them. And I wouldn't have trusted the boys like that. And then, this is 2002. Now, when did they go public? Was this right after the stock thing?
After, yes.
Because now, you go from a wrestling promotion where all the guys in the locker room are fairly harmonious, and suddenly they get a cheap, old, battered, beat-up plane that will take them where they want to go and get them home quicker, so they don't want to fuck it up. And then you go to the 90s where these guys, they're flying all over the world, and I know they're fucking bored, and I know it's a goddamn ridiculous schedule, but they're starting to ass off even more so than normal. And then you go to 2002 where they've got a rented giant jet airplane chartered specifically for them with unlimited alcohol and flight attendants, and they're coming from a pay-per-view in England, going to a TV in the United States, and they think they're goddamn legitimately rock and roll stars. And they start acting like it, and
That was Joey Ryan's excuse, remember?
oh God, well, and I mean, these guys at least had claim that they might be as popular as rock and roll stars, but that not like Ryan, but that didn't mean they had to act like it. And for whatever reason, the WWE, the guys have always been more over the top there, at least in that time period, 90s and O's, thousands, whatever. So, you know, there's no excuse for shit like that from a safety standpoint, from a humanity standpoint, from any kind of standpoint. And plus they've got, I'm sorry, Jesus Christ, Scott Hall makes a 15-second cameo, and that's enough. Otherwise he's unconscious, and that's still enough to get named in a lawsuit. And all this other shit that was going on. There's no excuse for that in front of people. And even if it was their own charter, they're still civilians serving them and or flying them. And it just, that to me is the thing, is that, and we'll go over this again, like I said, with Evan, but there was a point in time where if you were in the wrestling business, this shit flew in large part because you were in the wrestling business. You went to the town every day, and the fans, and there was no need to drug people. There were plenty of willing female fans. There was no need to force yourself on people. There was everybody that saw you, male or female, if they knew you were a wrestler and you're a star, everything's entertaining, right? And then you get in your car or your locker room with all the other boys, and you go and you do it the next place. And that was your entire life. And you weren't going to the fucking Metropolitan Opera and acting like this in front of people who had no idea who you were. But when the territories went away, the guys that got into business started hearing these stories about what supposedly happened in the territory. Well, yeah, all that shit did happen every once in a while, somewhere. But it didn't happen multiple times in the same place every fucking night. But those guys are trying to, well, now we've got to do this shit like they did. But in the meantime, the territories went away and your routine went away, and now you're not going to the same place 52 times a year, and you're not going to the people who want to be entertained by this type of thing, whether it's the helicopter or goddamn whatever. They're not coming to you. You're out in the general public, and you think it's still going to get over. And now wrestling is, you know, even in the 2000s, yes, we've been hot with the Attitude Era. But all of a sudden, there's a bunch of people involved in the periphery of the business that weren't just in the wrestling bubble. And they're going, what the fuck's going on here, when they see how these people act? So as the boys got worse in that time period, their audience changed from people who were not necessarily opposed to all this type of behavior on a limited basis to people who are going, what the fuck's the matter with these people? And at the same time, the guys getting in the business are trying to follow this standard that they believe the guys in the business previously set, because they've heard all the highlight stories. And they think that's just the way it was. They're all crazy. Brian, they're all crazy.
In fact, some might say they're nuts.
But not in a good way, like our friends at nuts.com, folks. I said, they sent me a birthday present, and it was my favorite thing on their menu. So how could these people be bad? Folks, at nuts.com, which we all know is the best kept secret of savvy snackers across the country.
Wow.
That's 2 shows in a row I've got that one out. Nuts.com isn't just for folks who like to love on and hug on nuts. It's your one-stop online pantry shop. Whether it's a variety of snacks and pantry items, including candies, dried fruits, baking mixes, pasta, or like the delicious white chocolate toffee cashews that I love, the bourbon pecans, the crystallized ginger, the honey sesame sticks. There's nutritious, delicious, healthy nuts, dried fruit, flowers, grains, dried strawberries, custom trail mix, plus all the raw, organic, roasted, salted, and candied nuts that you can imagine. They even dip them in chocolate. It's a family-run business, folks, that takes pride in getting you the freshest items That's why delivery is so fast. Most orders ship the same day. You'll have it tomorrow. It's fresher than the supermarket. And they've got gluten-free and vegan options. And Brian, of course, the entire Last Manor, the entire Last family, you guys graze on this stuff like you're just out in the wild. The fruits, the nuts, the organicness, the healthiness.
We are just like the deer on the land of Cornet's Creek, or Castle Cornet, I guess is what we would call it. You know what my new favorite is? And it's something I never thought about before in my life in terms of freshness. And now I do. They have a whole bunch of items that are great if you're going to have, like, you know, if you and the kids want to do a special night, have sundaes, ice cream with all sorts of things. Crushed Kit Kats, crushed Twix bars. They have amazing stuff. The Rainbow Sprinkles, a staple of ice cream everywhere. They're fresh. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It's such a weird thing.
Now, wait a minute, folks. I just want to caution you, do not put staples in your ice cream.
I said sprinkles.
You said it's a staple
It's
of ice cream everywhere. You do not put staples in ice cream. Don't put pins in apples at Halloween.
I don't understand why you're bringing this up in the middle of the spot. There's no reason to bring up any of this.
Because you're always chastising me for suggesting people do dangerous things and, of course, advertising our fine products and sponsors. And then you just tell people to eat ice cream with staples in it. And I said, just go no further with that. Fine, sir.
For the record, I didn't, and of course, Nuts.com doesn't sell staples. But if they did, they would be delicious staples. But I encourage everyone to try the Rainbow Sprinkles. They are fresh.
They're a staple of ice cream. Folks, right now, if you text 64,000, or do it the other way around, text experience now, you'll do this. You'll see it's not a number to a word, it's a word to a number. The other part doesn't work out. So if you text experience to 64,000, that's 64 with 3 zeros behind it, experience to 64,000, then new Nuts.com customers get free shipping on their first order. All you have to do, somehow it works out. I don't know how they know. They're keeping an eye on you, folks. Text experience to 64,000 and you get free shipping on your first order from Nuts.com. You don't know how to spell it? I'll tell you now. N-U-T-S. That's nuts to you. Nuts.com. Terms apply. Available at Nuts.com/terms. Have you come to terms with your nuts yet, Brian?
I've come to terms with my nuts. I love Nuts.com, of course.
Speaking of being everywhere, I had an email from one of the Culture Cornet members. Of course, I can't find it now, so I'm going to paraphrase it. But the gist of the email was, gosh, you talk about how you like to cut down on your traveling these days and you don't like to travel as much. I bet during your many years in wrestling, you had a lot of stressful trips. Can you tell any horror stories about travel? Because you see on Twitter these days, everybody's tweeting they're stuck in the airport or whatever, right? And what are your horror stories? And I had jotted down a couple because I thought the folks might be interested. Brian, do you think, give me some encouragement. Do you think the folks might be interested in some of the more miserable times I've traveled from one place to the other?
I think they would be interested. I think I'd be interested, and I hope at some point the airliner comes up on this show.
Oh, God, well, no, that wasn't a bad trip. It was just a bad destination. When we spent the night in the airliner inn at the Chicago Midway Airport in 88 with Dick Murdoch, and no, maybe even 87 with Dick Murdoch and me and the Midnight Express. That was really, once again, a case of the trip was great, and the planning by Crockett's people at the end of it, they thought we were flying into O'Hare and had everybody rooms at O'Hare Airport. But instead, they flew into Midway, and it was 3 a.m, and there were no cabs. Nobody would come and get us. We were strapped. We've got one cab, and we're 40 miles from O'Hare Airport, so we're trying to find a hotel there at Midway. And they say, oh, the airliner inn says they have rooms. So 4 at a time, it's only a mile from Midway, 4 at a time, this one cab at 3 o'clock in the morning ferries us back and forth from the airport, 3 and 4 guys, depending on who could fit in at a time. And we check in, and we got the last, me, Bobby, Stan, and Murdoch got the last 4 rooms. And the Stans didn't have a lock on the door from the outside. From the inside, you could lock it. But from the outside, you could just walk up and go in unless somebody was in there and had locked it from the inside. And Bobby's room had 3 beds, different sizes and different makes. And my room had basically a phone on a desk next to the bed, and there was a hole where the red light should be for messages. And there was no dial. And those are the time dial phones, but there was no dial. It was just the blank face of it. And I thought, oh my God, that can't work. So I go next door to the fucking White Castle and to use the payphone and get something to eat. And after I called my wife, I told her where we were, what the fuck was going on. I walk in, there's Paul Jones sitting there with this look on his face. I said, what's the matter? He said, don't eat here. I think the food is spoiled. And I smelled it. I said, no, it's White Castle. It's supposed to taste that way, Paul. It's okay. And then I go back to my room where I hear screaming in the room next door to me. And I don't know what to think. So I turn on the TV to try to drown it out a little bit, right? And it comes to find out it's the in-house porn channel. They have 4 channels. 2 of them are porn, 2 of them are TV, and it's a black and white television in 1988. So I at least I'm watching the same movie the guy next door is watching, right? When all of a sudden the dead phone rings. And the dead phone, oh fuck, I'm thinking I'm going to answer it. It's going to, I've come back, or something like that, right? And I answered, it's Bobby. He had picked up his phone, and it rang at the switchboard at the desk, and the creepy guy that checked us in had to put you through to whoever you wanted. You had to call Sarah at BR549. And I forgot to mention when he checked us in, Bobby's room didn't have, Murdoch's room didn't have linens. So this guy in a fucking hospital gown, bathrobe type of thing, open in the back and slippers, walks out. He called, hey, Carl. And this guy looked like he just had a fucking lobotomy. He walked out and handed him the clean sheet so he could take. So anyway, it was horrible, and none of us got any sleep because Bobby was calling. He's like, Corny, I'm scared.
Well, didn't Bobby have an incident in a hotel before this?
Well, if Bobby sleepwalked, if he ate spicy food or pepperoni pizza or whatever, Bobby would sleepwalk, right? So, under normal circumstances, if he'd had something questionable for dinner, he would put furniture in front of the door so it would prevent him. Because one time they found him in the lobby in his underwear, asleep on the couch. And he would sleepwalk. So, in this case, there was hardly any furniture in his fucking room. He didn't know whether he'd be walking down the fucking hall in his sleep and go into a crack deal or whatever the fuck gone wrong. So, nobody gets any sleep. Everybody's fucking miserable. It's an afternoon show the next day in Chicago, so we meet in the lobby at 11 in the morning, trying to get the fuck out of there. Me and Stan and Bobby were miserable. And here comes Murdoch whistling and fucking got that spring in his step. Hey, boys, how you doing? How'd you sleep? And we're like, fuck, we were all fucking miserable. This goddamn dump. And he said, oh, hell, it's me and Rhodes one night. We stayed in the hotel, and we went to sleep. We woke up the next morning, we had 4 inches of snow on top of us. He didn't give a shit. He went right to fucking sleep, slept like a fucking baby.
Didn't Bobby once walk in on someone, he thought it was his room, and there was someone in the room?
Oh, no, it was his room. See, I've done that too. And you need to be careful because this computerized key business does not prevent people from doing this. When you check in hotels a lot, and you see the level of, let's say, training that the staff has probably gotten for in the middle of nowhere or at a big city hotel airport where they'll just take anybody because there's hundreds of those hotels. In the middle of the night, they fuck up and they give you a room they've already given to somebody else. And if that's somebody else, this happened to me in Newark on a WWF trip. all the guys checked in, and I walk all the way down this goddamn hall and up and down this long walk, carrying my bags, stick the key in the knob, open the fucking door, and as I fling it open from the hall light, the room is dark, but I can see fucking feet hanging off the end of both of the twin beds with cover all fucking jabadada. Fuck! And they were male. And I slammed the door real quick and ran as fast as I could back down the hall and turned the corner so they came out. They wouldn't see me because the door had slammed. But I'm like, I've been shot. Who knows what the fuck? But they give you occupied rooms. You always have to, when you're in it, close the fucking latch thing and always put the do not disturb out. And give as many signs as you can that room is occupied. Is keep the do not disturb out when you're not in the room. You're insane if you don't do that. I'm just telling you. Because that'll make people go, hey, I better go fucking ask about this, right? But as far as harrowing or stressful, and I think that's why today I have a time disorder. It's almost like PTSD. Right? I always wear a watch. If I'm in a room somewhere, like if I'm in bed, I have to be able to see a clock. If I open my eyes, there has to be one close enough to me that I can see, even with my glasses off, know what time. I have to know what time it is at all points of the day. I estimate my time in my head. If I have my errands, I know within 15 minutes how long it's going to take me to do a variety of things and come back home. On a 700-mile trip, I can call Stacy and I know how long it takes to drive, blah, 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 and I can estimate the time I will be home. I'll be there with it, except for horrible traffic snafus. I'm 15 minutes either way. I always have time in my head because the traveling that we did, it wasn't just that some of the trips were hard, it's that we were always in a hurry because when you worked every day in different cities, without days off sometimes for weeks at a time, you were always in a hurry to go somewhere. Which is why that I now not only hate to go anywhere, but I hate to be in a fucking hurry. And it can be anything, like from the time that the Midnight Express and I had left Louisiana and moved to Dallas, we're working world class, but we were booked in Houston, which was a Mid-South town, on Easter Sunday. Now, to be honest with you, I had only been in business a couple of years, but we had never basically worked Easter in Texas. It's not that big of a traffic problem in the Tennessee territory or Carolinas or whatever, especially in those days, but I'm just telling you, from driving from Dallas to Houston on Easter Sunday it was incredible. The interstates were gridlocked. And we're fucking pulling our hair out and fucking our fingernails out, and Dennis Condrey is driving, thank God, because he's going down the emergency lane for miles at a time with the flashers on, honking the fucking horn. Like we've just found out our entire family has been slaughtered by, fucking the Huns. And we gotta get home, right? And he's going off ramps and back on, and my God, because we've got the clock ticking, because not only will we get fucking yelled at, but it's Mid-South, so if we're more than 15 minutes late for an hour before bell time, it's going to cost us $50 a piece too. So I don't know how but it was just like it was one of those nail biters that looked like an action movie. For 4 hours, you're in steady panic that you're going to be late. It's going to cost you money. You're in this fucking traffic. So those were stressful. But then other stuff was stressful when you were sitting still. Like, I told a story in my book, and I've told a story before, but for whatever reason, in Mid-South Wrestling, the day of the last Stampede in Little Rock, Arkansas, at the Barton Coliseum, they booked us, because it was a Sunday, they booked a Sunday afternoon spot show at like 1 o'clock and I can't even remember, but it was a town in Arkansas about an hour and a half away from Little Rock. And we're out there, they're going to draw an all-time record-breaking crowd, as Nick Goulas would say. Literally, they're going to sell out the Barton Coliseum, 7,000-plus people, draw the biggest gate they've ever drawn in the town. And, of course, Watson and Dog are in Little Rock, but the Midnight Express is working with whoever we're working with. The point is, there's like 10 guys on the Little Rock card working in this little town in Arkansas that afternoon. But that's the way the territories work. You just did it. So, naturally, since we're in the main event of the hot match, Dennis's van from hell that he bought from Stan Lane in Tennessee. And boy, I wish those van walls could have talked and give me something to do on these 500-mile fucking trips. But Dennis's van breaks down, and we were in Star City, Arkansas. Look it up on, well, I know everybody has a Rand McNally Road Atlas within easy reach like I do here, but look up on a map somewhere on your computers where Star City, Arkansas is today. And then think over 30 years ago what a podunk fucking piece of shit town this was. And we are broke down and we're an hour away from which I think our payoff for that night was $1,500 a piece, which today would be, you know, $3-4 grand or whatever in today's money. So we're stressing now we're not going to make it. And we get to literally, we saw people working on a fucking lawnmower out in a parking lot of a lawnmower business. And we got them, believe it or not, to fix, I don't know anything about cars, whatever the fuck it was, the water pump, or it was something within their level of competence to fix that fucking thing so that we finally made it after the show had already started, and there's no cell phones then. And we had the number for the box office, but because the box office had stopped answering the phones because they were ringing off the hook because they locked the front gates of the goddamn Barton Coliseum at 7 o'clock, because nobody else could get in. So there's no way for us to tell anybody what's happened to us. And so we come in, the first match is already in, and Dundee looked like he turned a bucket of fucking, he was the booker then, looked like he turned a bucket of water over his head. He was sweating, fuck are they gonna get here? And that's when I first heard him say, well, god damn it, if you're gonna be fucking late, be so late, we're glad to see you. So that was another harrowing trip, even though it was only 9 miles, it was hell, and we were delayed, and everybody was fucking sweating. Or there was literally, and this was in the Midnight Express book also, Christmas week of '86 in the Charlotte, Crockett's territory. We worked, I believe it was Christmas night in Charlotte, on a Friday, and then Saturday morning we went to Atlanta and did the 2 Atlanta TV shows for that weekend. And then that night flew to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where we had a show. And then flew back to Greensboro, North Carolina from Minneapolis the next afternoon for an afternoon event at the Greensboro Coliseum, which was the Bunkhouse Stampede. And then, for whatever reason, and I swear to you this took place, they booked a Greensboro matinee, and they booked Albuquerque, New Mexico at the Tingley Coliseum at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time that night.
What? That's crazy.
And because Crockett had a plane, see, he had just got that fucking jet. Not the jabroni jet, the prop jet that they couldn't take pretty much past the Mississippi. It was too slow, but they got that Falcon jet. And somewhere now they figured out if they split up their talent, because the Falcon jet seated 10 people. They could take Dusty and Flair and the Road Warriors and a couple of the Horsemen and whatever, you're 10 guys, right? And they could have some of the guys in Greensboro, and they could have some of the guys in Albuquerque, and pick up a few locals out there, and they could make this work. And they're going to show off this new plane, right? Well, they fucking forgot a couple things. One, they forgot about the managers. So me and J.J. Dillon were booked on both cards and had to fly commercial. So I don't know if J.J. made it out that day, but because the Midnight Express were only in the Bunkhouse Stampede. So think about this. On Friday night, we started home in Charlotte. We worked a big show there at the Charlotte Coliseum. We go to Atlanta Saturday morning, do the 2 TV tapes. Then we go to Minneapolis and do the goddamn Saturday night house show. We're already back in Greensboro, North Carolina on Sunday afternoon. And they said, well, Grant, you and JJ got to fly commercial, so if the Bunkhouse Stampede is not up by so-and-so, you don't need to go out. So I got paid like on that big house in Greensboro, like $750 just to show up there and stand around. And got in a cab with JJ. We went to the Greensboro airport. Now, of course, they have non-stops from Greensboro to Albuquerque constantly. We had to fly through Chicago. So we at United Airlines, we get on the fucking middle seats from Greensboro to Chicago and then Chicago to Albuquerque. I was still in my suit. I hadn't even changed clothes yet, right? I put the racket in the suit bag, had my bags with me. And JJ the same. And we got in a cab and we went to the Tingley Coliseum. We flew across 2 time zones in doing that. Oh, and in Chicago, we had to get off of the old stairs that they would wheel up and then walk across the tarmac and do the other thing because it was a fucking fucked up gate deal. We got out of the cab and I walk in the back of the Tingley Coliseum and they say, we're in intermission. I'm like, thank God. They say, we're ringing the bell in 2 minutes. It's your match with the Road Warriors. It was the Midnight versus the Road Warriors because Crockett's plane hadn't had to stop in Chicago. So the guys that worked this bunkhouse stampede in Greensboro actually beat us to fucking Albuquerque. And then that night, we got to go to bed and get up the next morning and fly to Los Angeles and then San Francisco. And then on New Year's Eve, 1986, San Francisco back to Charlotte because we were off that night and we were back in the Omni on New Year's Day in Atlanta. This is another reason I don't like to travel. Any Smoky Mountain Wrestling TV taping was a harrowing experience because I had probably literally just finished all the paperwork, run it off on the copy machine in my house, and Brian Hildebrand might even be driving while I was making notes. Because I was going to be the person that was going to get there first, do the production meeting, and then I was going to lay it out to all the talent, and then I was going to be involved as the top heel manager in several segments each of all 4 television shows. So and they were being shot in places like Clinch Cove, Virginia, and Everett, Kentucky, and my God, the infamous taping in Clairfield, Tennessee, where the gym at the school that they told us they had turned out to be literally a basketball court with room for 3 rows of chairs on 3 sides of it in a concrete block building, and we somehow managed to pull off a television taping out of there. I'm on the way, driving by myself, at one point on the way to a Smoky Mountain television taping up in the hills of Western Virginia, and I'm running late, and I'm behind a bunch of traffic, and they're going around something I can't see up the top of the hill, and finally there's this big truck, half on, half off the fucking road, broke down on the side of the road, and as I'm going around and I'm giving them a finger, I'm like, you motherfuckers, that's my ring truck! The fucking ring was broke down on the top of the mountain. I had to get to the goddamn school and send people back to get the fucking ring to drag it the rest of the way up the mountain so we could set it up for television.
We're listening to Jim Cornette still. Also exercising. What about you, Bart? Oh, I'm technically watching the sunrise, I guess. Avocado and grilled cheese. My goodness. When are you getting the bird? Bird, 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 that's the word. Bird, bird, bird. Oh. Them sons of bitches. Next Wednesday.
Tonight, authorities releasing new video showing Charlie Kirk's suspected killer in the moments immediately after the shooting at Utah Valley University. You can see the suspect run across a roof as he flees the scene.
He's going to climb off the edge and then drop down to the ground. As he did that, he left some palm impressions. There's some smudges, some places we're looking to collect DNA. There's a shoe imprint.
The video then showing the suspect running across the parking lot, approaching a street. Police say after the video cuts out, the suspect ran into the woods, where investigators say they found a high-powered rifle wrapped in a towel. Sources say 3 unspent cartridges were recovered, containing markings that are now under investigation. Other clues include a footprint on the roof and impressions that investigators believe are from the shooter's palm and forearm.
The lab at Quantica, the FBI lab, they have the latest technology in DNA extraction, and obviously they're really pros at finding partial or complete prints of some sort. So that's going to help them maybe identify him if he has prints on file.
Authorities say they received more than 7,000 leads and tips in this case, the most since the Boston Marathon bombing, and they've conducted more than 200 interviews, but they're pleading with the public to look closely at these images of the suspect.
Please pay close attention to the t-shirt, like I said, very distinctive with that American flag and that eagle. The hat with the triangle and the sunglasses.
Another video obtained by TMZ shows a figure who appears to be the gunman approaching the campus. Sources say based on the long distance from where the shot was fired, from an elevated position, and the low-tech nature of the rifle, the shooter likely had considerable experience with firearms. Despite no suspect in custody, President Trump yesterday blaming the left for Kirk's death.
We have a radical left group of lunatics out there, just absolute lunatics, and we're going to get that problem solved. I'm only concerned for the country.
Just hours after the shooting, the president condemning political violence while listing the attacks on Republicans, not mentioning the recent attacks of Democrats in Minnesota or the attempt on the life of Pennsylvania's governor.
I think it is dangerous when the president cherry picks which political violence he's going to condemn and which he's going to allow to just simply pass. I think we need to be universal in condemning all political violence.
Authorities now warning about more messages online pushing for violence.
What we're seeing is our adversaries want violence. China, we have bots from Russia, China, all over the world that are trying to instill disinformation and encourage violence.
Amid outrage over graphic videos online, TikTok now vowing to remove images of Kirk's shooting. While in Arizona, Charlie Kirk's widow returning home with her husband's body, escorted by Vice President J.D. Vance, who described Kirk as a true friend. And the FBI is offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of Kirk's killer. We're going to stay with ABC News on air and online for the latest on this investigation.
About Chris Jericho, he was on a red carpet over the weekend, and a lot of people really picked up on what he was talking about. He was asked about AEW, and he says the best thing that can happen to wrestling is AEW. And the fact that there are 2 huge promotions you can choose from just makes it better for the guys, makes it better for the fans, and everybody in between. I'm not going anywhere for a long while. I'm still with AEW for right now. Would I go back to WWE? I wouldn't be opposed to it. We just have to see what happens. The best thing that can happen is to have 2 great teams that you can play for, and that just makes everything bigger and more exciting. Now, of course, Jericho's had this reputation, John, as being the master of, reinventing himself. So a lot of people are curious, if he comes back to WWE, what might that look like? Before we talk about that, I want you to have just a minute to talk about, I don't know, I wouldn't call it necessary, but as a fan, man, it sure does make it a lot more fun when there are 2 companies. Whether it's AEW or AEW, take it from there.
Yeah, and I think, sorry to cut you off, I think it makes it better. I think it makes it a lot better. You know, the times that Vince did things that were crazy was when he was bored. You know, he came up with IcoPro when WCW had no ratings. Of course, then he had, unfortunately, the government trial against him at the same time, which took his time away and really, hurt the business. But that's when he came with IcoPro. He came with XFL when WCW was no longer around later. When you have no competition, creative guys need to fill the void somewhere. And there's no reason to fill it with wrestling because you don't have competition. And that's just my opinion, is that when you don't have it, it's just, I would imagine it's hard to put on it's hard to have your feet to the fire. I know with Vince, when things went bad, I would see him, it was almost like, oh, fantastic. I get to go to work. And he, gets to pull the company out of the tailspin or gets to pull something out of a fire. He loved that. And I think all creative guys do. And when you don't have somebody to beat, I think it hurts the business. So I think it's good. I think it's really good for WWE. I think their show is just absolutely on fire, and all the stuff they're doing, is response to, I don't think, AEW is big competition, or, you can argue, how big they are as competition. I don't think it's much, but they do respond. And I think that has a huge positive effect on the business. And then you have other companies trying to be part of this. I think it's huge to have two companies.
Well, I agree. I think it's better for the wrestling business and for the performers in the wrestling companies, and certainly for fans to have something to choose from. We know that we're just a couple of weeks away from September 20th. Oh, shout out to TJ Stevens, who's been a top guy now for over 5 years. Appreciate you being a member with us over at AdFreeShows.com. I wanted to ask specifically about the way things might change without a second company, because you were with the WWE for a long time, where realistically there was no competition, but you were also there at the height of the Monday Night Wars and the Attitude Era, and I feel like even as a performer, it had to be more fun when Nitro was running head-to-head with you guys, right?
It was huge, absolutely huge. You wanted to beat them. You wanted to see what they had on their show, and you wanted to go up against it. You wanted to be the guy at bat. Choose all these guys. Everybody wants to go to a sports record, but you want to be the guy at bat. And when there's no competition, what happens if you shit the bed? It doesn't really matter. I understand your pride, and as a performer, I get all that stuff. But if there's no consequence for it, like, okay, that wasn't good that week, we'll try you again next week. If you're not good when you have competition and you're going up against something that competition has, and you lose, you're either getting gotten rid of or you're putting way down on the roster somewhere. You won't be in that spot again. So you love the competition. I mean, and I think the times that WWE has not been creative, and they tried to find their own competition within themselves. That's when they did ECW. That's when they did NWA. That's when they did all kinds of stuff. It just hasn't worked very well.
Were you ever, and I know you're outside the tent now, I mean, I know we get this all the time, but people believe that you are a contracted WWE performer. Will you set the record straight on that?
Absolutely not. Nope. Do not work for them.
Now, that doesn't mean that you won't come in as a one-off here or there.
I have a wonderful relationship that I'm very happy with, and I don't do anything that surprises them. I have a great relationship. I'm going to do something. Sometimes I'll give them a heads up, and I'm going to do something just out of common respect and courtesy. I love those guys, and I love the company. I've been there 30-something years. I'm not going to do anything to harm that company. But no, I'm not. People accuse me of being a shill for them, working for them. That's not true. And now I am doing some stuff with them, and I'm glad when they call. Always answer the phone, and if I can do it, I'll always be there for them.
Listen, I'm a big fan of WWE. I think everybody listening to this is, but I do think that WWE, like, I know they tried to create their own competition with the brand split, but with all due respect, it's not the same, is it?
Nope. No, it's not. It wasn't the same. We did have competition. Now, we did, we wanted to see what our house show numbers were doing. We wanted to see what our pay-per-view numbers were doing. We want to see what our top guys, how we were drawing against their top guys and on down the card. We did keep up with all of that, but then it kind of got murky, and guys would go back and forth, and then you'd go, okay, that guy was with me, now he's over there. It's just, and it's not like you ever had an animosity toward the other side. It's just really good competition. There was competition, but it doesn't work like it's a zero-sum game, because if you don't work out on Raw, you can go to SmackDown. If you didn't work out at WWE, you might not be able to go to WCW. They may not want you, especially if it doesn't work out. So the competition, even when you're trying to create yourself, I don't think it's ever really worked. And certainly hadn't worked when I was there. I mean, the things we did with taking over companies has been horrible up until now.
One of the things that I think about sometimes is from a storytelling perspective, and I know that a lot of wrestlers get frustrated when they hear something like, hey, creative has nothing for you. And I know that there are other professional wrestlers, Hall of Fame acts, who would say, well, that's your job. You should be fired. And I get all that. But on some level, if you've got the same character to the same audience for so long, you do get this sense of familiarity. And I'm not even talking about wrestling. I'm talking about like just regular television shows where people start to maybe take things for granted. And I think, Jim Cornette famously has said, how can I miss you if you don't go away? So I'm wondering, did you ever feel like creatively you were at an impasse at any time in your WWE career where you think, man, I don't really want to retire and I'm not unhappy with WWE, but I'm frustrated creatively, but there's not really an alternative to go to. And I know that there is now, but that wasn't always the case. Did you ever feel like at any point in your career, like you love WWE, I know you're a WWE dyed-in-the-wool guy, I get that. But there had to be times where you were like, damn it, I don't know what else there is to do for this JBL character, and now that I've established this character so well, it's hard maybe to reinvent yourself if this is what they want and this is what they're familiar with. But if I did something else, I may have that opportunity. I bring that up because I feel like a lot of fans are kind of like, about Chris Jericho and the Learning Tree. But they've seen, all these, I don't know, a dozen different versions of Chris Jericho. So if he shows up in WWE, I don't have any inside knowledge. I don't know what's going to happen. But if he does, it's probably not going to be the Learning Tree. He'll reinvent himself again. Did you ever wish there was an opportunity to reinvent yourself, or did you feel like you did that with the transition of Justin Hawk Bradshaw, the new Blackjacks, the APA, and finally JBL, and then I guess ultimately the commentator version of your career?
Yeah, I never felt that with JBL because I got hurt before the character, kind of got stale, and so went to do commentary and do other stuff. So I didn't have a run long enough, I would think, for it to get stale. And I would like to. I don't know if I had other things, but I had a lot of ideas for the JBL character. We did change it a lot. We did change it some. I was a smiling JBL for a while. I was a frowning, grumpy JBL for a while. Vince and I specifically would go through and change the characteristics of JBL ever so often. It's like Piper used to always say, if everybody's smiling, you frown. If everybody's frowning, you smile. And if you're the top guy, when people start copying, you change because it'll take them months to catch up with you. That's the one thing that so many people miss. That's why you never copy the top guy, because they've already got the top guy. There's never a next anything. There's not a next Hogan. There's not a next Cena. There's something new. The next person that comes along is, look at them from history, from San Martino to Hogan to Stone Cold to Rock to Cena to Roman to Cody. All these characters are completely different. The only thing I ever felt lost in was the Blackjacks. And that's why me and Wyndham, when I went to Japan right before the 2 days after the Montreal screw job, that's why I didn't think I was coming back, because I didn't think they had anything for me. And so I was pretty lost. And I don't want to blame it on creative, that we just didn't have anything for me and Barry for some reason. And so I knew enough to think I'm not going to stay here and just get fired, because I didn't know if WCW wanted Justin Bradshaw or not. They probably didn't. I wouldn't think. I certainly wasn't. Bret Hart was on their priority list. And so when I went to Japan, I didn't plan on coming back. I just figured that was where I was going to stay with Stan and Doc and Gary and all those guys and dunk them and finish out my career over there. But that's when the world changed and everybody started having guaranteed contracts. And that's when all of a sudden they said, hey, we can't lose anybody else, even Justin Hawk Bradshaw. So when I came back from Japan, that's when I got my first guaranteed contract.
Again, we're not trying to stir up any controversy here on the show today, but I just want to remind everybody, once upon a time, the territory system, this was common. I remember having a conversation with Michael Hayes once, and he said something like, do you know when the best time to leave a territory is? And I said, foolishly, no, I guess, when it feels like everything's run its course. And he goes, no, that's how you never make any money. You leave when you're on top. You can always leave them wanting more. That was something I never even really considered. So the idea that perhaps you leave when your stock is at an all-time high, and to make a more recent comparison, I forget what her name is now in WWE, maybe it's Blake Monroe, but in AEW she was Mariah May, and she left fresh off of a top program. Like that feels like what guys in the old territory days, they would try to do, right? They leave when they're on top, and then they know they can always come back.
100%. That's why those guys come in. Guys that get so mad. They're not necessarily mad. I think they're just envious, and envious in a very good way. They come in and be on top. You have guys like the Sheik, guys like Abdullah, guys like Brody would come around, Stan would come around, and guys would be travelers. They'd work on top for 6-8 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, and then they'd leave and go somewhere else on top. They never got burned out. Now it was a lot of travel, and it was a lot of work, and you're You never are under contract anywhere. You're always working for the next job. But yeah, that is the exact way to do it. That's why the old guys, you see guys get fired in there. Oh, that's the worst thing ever. Getting fired is bad. I've been fired a few times. But if you're working in the territories, you got fired. That shit happens. And you realize it's not the end of the world. I remember I was at WB show one time and somebody got hurt and I'm going to say what he is now, a Hall of Famer. And I asked Bruce, I said, what happened? He goes, first time he's ever been hurt. And it was. 3 months later, that happens to him, and no big deal. The first time you get hurt, first time you get fired, you think it's the end of the world, then all of a sudden you realize it's not.
Well, I'm pulling for Chris Jericho. Can't wait to see what's next.
And the thing about Chris is Chris will change his finish. Chris will change everything. Chris has been so good about changing everything he's done every few years. I'm a huge fan of Chris. I think he's done a wonderful job doing it. And whatever he's doing now, look, if it's just coming from a place of, hey, I'm happy whatever happens, but it's also negotiation. It's pretty smart. I know Brock, right before he came back to WWE one time, he wasn't sure what to do, and he went out and showed up at a pay-per-view in Vegas, UFC. Yep. And I know, man, Vince blew a gasket. But Brock got a huge deal out of it.
You got paid.
Sometimes you do that for negotiation. Negotiation isn't always a really amicable thing sometimes. Even when it's friendly, it's still a little bit contentious.
Listen, creating a little bit of leverage for yourself is never a bad thing. And we're live here right now. If you've got questions for John, we want to hear them. And Maddie is with us, and he says, John, what's one thing that fans don't get about Chris Jericho? Because there's lots of preconceived notions about Chris Jericho. This is a guy we've seen on TV forever and ever. Gosh, nearly 30 years on TV at this point. What is one thing that you think fans don't know about Chris Jericho?
I don't know. I can't read fans' minds, but I don't know if they know how smart he is, and I don't know if they know how his ego is in what he does, not in himself. And that's a big freaking difference in performers. People that have the ego in themselves, those guys are assholes. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes they're decent guys, but they're hard to deal with because their ego's in the misguided place. Chris's ego is in the right place. It's in what he's doing. So he wants what he's doing, whether it's a segment, whether it's a match, whatever, to be fantastic. It's not like, hey, I'm winning this match to make myself look good. I'm going to make myself look good. That's a big part of it. By making this whole thing look good, because then I'm going to look like the top guy that I am. And I don't know if people ever accused Chris of being selfish. I don't hear a lot of the talk, but his ego's in the right place.
Man, I love that. I don't know that I've ever heard that before. His ego's in the right place. That's pretty good. Well, we'll stay tuned to see what happens with Chris Jericho. I, for one, am hoping that he gets the biggest contract he's ever had.
What a run he's had. What an incredible run.
Incredible.
He was the first undisputed champion. He's gone back and forth between companies. He's always on top. He's been a top guy consistently reinvent himself. He's having, that is a legendary, long run he's having. And I love the stuff he does with the cruises and stuff. I tried to go last year and I couldn't. I had a conflict. I couldn't go. I wanted to go. But Chris has done so much stuff. I just admire him for what he's done.
How could you not? Yeah, the cruise seems like a blast. Everybody I know who's gone has had an outstanding time. I was supposed to go one year and had some family stuff come up, but Jericho is the man. He's had an incredible run, and I gotta say, if he does come back to WWE, it does feel like he's a shoe-in to go into the Hall of Fame at some point, right?
Oh, 100%. I think they'll put him in right away. It'll probably be part of the creative package that they have for him when he comes back to go into the Hall of Fame and make that part of the whole storyline thing. I'm sure that I have no inside information, but I'm sure that makes sense that will be right, yes.
And by the way, it's worth mentioning, hypothetically, since everybody and their brother is talking about Chris Jericho perhaps going to WWE, the real Chris Jericho thing would be for him to show up as a surprise in AEW, would it not?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And say I've been loyal the whole time. I just got, I don't know. I don't know anything behind the scenes. I haven't talked to Chris in a couple years. I just feel like this is a well-played negotiation. I feel like this is really well done. He's going to show up somewhere with a really big contract, and I'm going to be very happy for him when he does it, but he plays his cards well.
Do you know off the top of your head who Chris Jericho's agent is?
I do not. No.
You're Barry Bloom.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Just saying, hypothetically, he's in a good place.
He is in a very good place.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name's Daryl. I came from Massachusetts and moved to Wisconsin. There's a lot of people that might be asking, why go with Conrad? Why go with Supreme Lending? And let me tell you something, brother. I think about the credentials, the tag team partner that I'd be working with. First of all, we got the Podfather himself, Conrad. How could you go wrong with that? And then also go on to SaveWithEric.com, which, you know, who else could have kicked Vince's ass for 83 consecutive weeks? You can't beat that duo right there. But they did bring a secret weapon. And I didn't realize this because this was not advertised. I worked closely with Larry the Axe Thompson. And let me tell you, with all the stress moving across the country, with a large family that I have, it was reassuring to know that I had the enforcer at my back, handling questions from the other side of sellers. The other side would try to find the right prices. He took care of all that. And all I had to do was keep my eye on the prize and make it there to Wisconsin.
Don't just take classes, take charge. Start your comeback today at PurdueGlobal.edu.
Style starts with detail. The difference between mid and next level. A real global change that hits. Lifetime guarantee. $36 5-star reviews and a free chain with every new order.
Was not well thought out, not well done. Forget about Travis Scott, who was kind of in the middle of the whole thing. That didn't work out either. The Rock now looks like he's half the size that he was 6 months ago, so that
He's half the man he used to be.
and apparently he's trying as hard as he can to be considered serious as an actor right now. It may be hard because everything you see him in, it's Dwayne Johnson trying to act. But he ain't gonna be back anytime soon.
At the same point though, now, since he's lost 50 pounds, we're sure of one thing, he ain't gonna wrestle. And you know,
Well, you could make him a babyface. They have a bunch of heels beat up on the sickly-looking Rock. Doesn't that make
you know
him a
what?
babyface?
But if I was the Rock and I could have gotten the shape that I was in, as he's in, or you know what I'm saying, over the last year or two, I'd have had a goddamn match with Roman Reigns just to do a family member a fucking favor, instead of trying to be the final boss and pissing everybody's post toasted. But anyway, back to Cena in the ring here. He even said, I've dodged roadblocks and pivots. But you guys, you know, I'm so grateful to Chicago for always being critical of him, but making him work for it, and he left it all out there on his final tour, and he put him over strong and talked about how they bring their power. They got the power. They bring people back, and the people start chanting AJ Lee, which is a brilliant little. I'm just saying, this was so well put together. It's his last time in Chicago, last time on SmackDown. It was 23 years ago in that very building, and I, of course, did not remember that, where he came down and slapped Kurt Angle. And he talked about the big matches in Chicago, but he got pops for each one of them. He wasn't somebody standing there saying, when I faced Oblivion J. Jones in Korakuen Hall in fucking Tokyo, and people are reading. And he said Chicago was the greatest WWE crowd, and the people were left chanting, thank you, Cena. One of the great babyface promos of anybody's, history. And he said, thank you for the beautiful ride. And the music plays. And it's Sami Zayn's music. It's that commie dirtbag Sami Zayn. Who could ever like him? And
seemingly no one. The fans were ready to boo him right away. Didn't it seem like that?
Because here's the thing. If you had played goddamn Tinkerbell's music and had the fairy come out and sprinkle because Sami Zayn can talk his ass off. Which, again, so fucking... I had him when he was a mute. Again, what is my timing? What is life?
Trash.
But that's the thing. As soon as his music came down, as he started to speak, they were booing the shit out of him because they just knew. Oh my God, he's going to kick him in the balls or some shit, right? And Cena even said, it's happy hour in Chicago. I'm here for the booze. And then, as Sami, they're booing him, but when he starts talking, at least they're not just doing the fake boo where they're trying to drown him out. It's where they're genuinely expressing displeasure at what they think he's going to do. But when he says, John, I want to say thank you from the boys in the back. Thank you for what you did for me. Now they started warming up a little bit. They're like, okay, well, now we don't know, but we'll just not shit on him right directly. And then little history, and I'm sure this is why they had this match. Again, I'm sure there's folks out there that will remember this happening fondly. I didn't even see it and didn't give a shit. But Sami's debut was apparently against John Cena for the U.S. title. When Cena was doing the open challenge thing, right? So now he is the U.S. champion, and he wants to pay it forward. And he wanted to, introduce or institute the Sami Zayn U.S. Open Challenge. And John's like, oh, I like the idea. Okay. And he starts to, yeah, do it. And he's going to leave. And Sam, not so quick. And now again, they're like, But then you can kind of tell by the demeanor, Sami wants to defend the U.S. title against Cena, to share a ring with him, to give him what he gave Sami years ago, a shot at the U.S. title, and now the crowd's roaring, yay, yes! And how about in Chicago, yay! Right now, yes, yeah! I mean, people are just throwing the babies and goddamn fondling themselves. And then Sami says, if you want some, the whole crowd says, come get some. And Cena milks it, and Sami's got his hand out, and Cena says, you're on, and they shake and they pop again. It was like, Jesus Christ, this is, right? I'm just saying, how could you have done this any better than what they just did this?
I mean, in terms of setting up an angle for a match on the show between two baby faces, I guess they did it pretty good. It did seem like the fans were kind of ready to boo Sami. And I think there's something interesting there. I don't think it was just about someone's coming out here to confront Cena or talk to Cena. I think it may have been specific to Sami too. You know, we have seen like kind of the pacifist pansy character for a long time. And I know they teased the idea that like Karrion Kross was trying to get to his soul and change him back to who he's supposed to be. And I think there was
unemployed?
I think there was a segment of the fan base that was kind of like getting behind that, and then Karrion Kross is gone, we're just right back to Sami being, again, the pacifist pansy.
Oh, so you think maybe some people who like Sami were like, oh shit, if he turned heel, he'd get a bigger push.
I think there is some of that too, because there is a dedicated Sami Zayn fan base that think he should be the world champion. But
well,
it did seem like Chicago. It did seem like they were ready to boo Sami, and he had to kind of work overtime to get them to not boo him. And again, it wasn't going to kick him in the balls or anything. So now, with that said, I thought it was a really intriguing segment. And like you alluded to at the top, when I watch SmackDown or Raw, I'm just always waiting for the ball to drop. I'm always waiting for something's going to happen, and this is going to become unwatchable anytime now. And they kept my attention throughout this. And I was very curious to see how they're going to do the match, because I don't think Cena's going to win the U.S. title. Is Cena going to put over Sami? I mean, that'd be an interesting move on his way out before the Brock match. And then, of course, we got the match. But I thought it was a really good angle.
Well, and that's the thing is that, I'm sorry, but it's just obvious. They have a large crowd that knows everything that's going on because it's simple enough to keep the basics of the people that you like in your head rather than this constant chaos and you get other places. And it's stars and it's people that are recognized and it's a show that's produced well and details are not forgotten. And now you got two baby faces, but they're just amped to see Cena's last match in Chicago. And still what's going to happen? You don't know. So anyway, they're 25 minutes into the show. They come back from the break. The match is already underway. But now they're back to booing Sammy when he's on the offense. They boo, but they're doing arm drags. They're having a wrestling match, and the people are into it, and they're invested. And if Sammy arm drags Cena, they'll boo, and if Cena arm drags Sammy, they'll cheer. And Sammy is not healing.
Okay, I think we did over 3 hours.
It doesn't matter because the crowd has a clear favorite. And Cena
You guys have a good
can't
one,
go as
please.
hard or as
Bye.
fast as he used to.